Hi guys, welcome to the new Naruto story. Please don't forget to subscribe and like it.
I woke up in the middle of a huge room. It was dark all around. Wet. There was water under my feet. Much water. It was cold. Dark and cold. Scary. Very scary. Please. Anyone. Save. Help. I beg you. Getting up, I began to look around, feeling myself trembling inside from cold and fear. Suddenly, I felt someone approach me from behind, and in the next moment I was touched by a hand that lay on my shoulder. From the strongest fear, I turned around and jumped away from the one who scared me. "Who are you, Databeo?" I yelled as I got to my feet again. There was a strange guy in front of me. He was dressed in all white, his hair was also white, but his eyes were red. This guy was now smiling, and I felt his benevolence. However, I was afraid of him. I just got goosebumps all over my body just looking at him. Why am I afraid of him? After all, he is not scary at all and does nothing wrong, yet. My name is Accelerator. And you? The scary guy spoke up. Now, looking at him, I see that he is older than me. I wonder if he's already a shinobi. Axial, I began to speak slowly, trying not to make mistakes. I'm afraid of him and I don't want to piss him off now with the wrong pronunciation. You can just Axel, for simplicity. My new acquaintance interrupted me, noticing my difficulties. Axel. Clear. Quickly overcoming my fear of the stranger, I decided that I should introduce myself. And I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And how did you get here? And where are we anyway? Where are we? In a dream. Your dream, if you do not understand, but I came here because I heard you ask for help, so I responded. I didn't plan at all, to fall into the astromental plane, but somehow it happened by itself. It seems that after my AIM field stopped conflicting with mana and stabilized completely, it expanded its boundaries, which is why I accessed such a deep layer of unreality. And I decided to help you, just because I thought, why not? Once I already tried to help a little girl, but only, an unpleasant situation turned out to be there, in short. So how did you end up here, Naruto? What? What did he say? I did not get anything. Is that we are inside my dream? And he came because I asked for help, but then. I did not understand anything. I don't know. I was just moved from the orphanage and given my apartment, and also the allowance. So I decided to go buy something to eat, and I wanted to celebrate my birthday. It was already evening when I was going to the shops, intending to buy a dango, but no one wanted to sell me anything, and whoever sold it asked me as much as 4 or even 5 other boys pay. I was returning home hungry, but some old man came out from around the corner, who, seeing me, screamed, rushed at me and started beating, and then I ended up here. These memories reeked of pain in the places where I felt it when I was beaten. Hurt. Axel froze and began to think about something, and after a few minutes of his motionless standing still, when I was about to call out to him, his hair began to stir, and sticky and such thick fear and horror spread from him that it seemed to paralyze me, and the eyes themselves became moist from the tears appearing there. Scary. Very very scary. A dark figure began to appear around Axel, surrounding him from all sides. She looked like black smoke, through which it was hard to see Axel himself. Smoke flooded the space around and dispersed everywhere. The water below me, which was still, suddenly began to move and began to swirl at Axel's feet with increasing speed, absorbing all this smoke. And the fear I felt grew more and more. I fell into the water, which crashed against me with great speed and flowed on. And then I heard something else. Rare. I heard from my right and I turned my head there, but I didn't see anything, only my eyes. Brightly glowing fiery red eyes with an elongated pupil. But gradually I began to distinguish through the dark smoke surrounding everything, which soaked into the water and the walls around, a huge monster. A huge fox, behind which are no less gigantic tails, of which there were 9. And at the same time, there was a similar figure around him, only here it was of a different, fiery red, almost red color. Axel continued to spread fear around. And after that, he suddenly found himself next to a huge cage in which this monster was imprisoned. Huge balls of darkness appeared inside the cage. Dozens. Hundreds of balls. In the next instant, they all crashed into the huge fox. The howl of a huge monster spread around, and it seemed to me that the walls began to crumble from this cry. Axel, that terribly strong demon, created these orbs over and over again, hundreds and thousands of orbs that seemed to be made from the darkness itself. Almost all of these balls hit the fox, but some sometimes passed by, flying out of the cage and hitting the walls, from which they simply disappeared. The water began to boil and evaporate, the walls began to disintegrate into stones, which were dissolved in this black smoke. All this vast space just disappeared. Dissolved. Destroyed. This smoke passed through me, remained in me, changed me. I felt it, but I couldn't understand what was going on. I wasn't hurt, tickled or anything. I just became different. Everything collapsed. We are left in the void. There are 3 of us. I am Axel. Monster Fox. He was also in a cage, which was also in the void, only now he began to expel something with his whole body, covering himself, as if with liquid, dark red fire. The balls of darkness stopped bothering this monster, almost completely burning up in its fiery cover, but then Axel stopped a little and a huge spear from the same darkness as those balls began to appear right next to him. Despite the darkness surrounding us, I could still clearly see that spear. It stood out from all this darkness very distinctly. And now this spear has already broken through the monster's defenses and hit him, which is why a new howl of pain resounded throughout this boundless darkness. And at that time I experienced such fear that my heart seemed to fly out of my chest or explode right inside. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't speak, my eyes watered and my whole body didn't obey me, frozen in terrifying fear. And then I felt this place disappear. How do I get out of here? As for the last time I see this terrifying and terrible demon, Axel. Terrifyingly scary, terrifyingly strong, terrifyingly amazing. I saw what monsters exist. What powers do they have? And I was beaten by some old alcoholic. The usual bastard old man, who should already rot in the ground and decompose into food for worms. These monsters, their power seemed so unattainable. I wanted to become Hokage to be recognized. For what? So that these bastards that hate me, beat me, bringing me to fractures, recognize me? Yes, such a goal for Biju. To Biju such dreams. Don't care about that Hokage. I want power. Not strength like those monsters. Power greater than theirs. More than Axel and Monster Fox combined. So that no one can ever make me afraid again. Commentary on Part 1. Prologue. Here was the beta. And the cat too. Part 2. I woke up. It didn't hurt. Arm, chest, head, nothing hurt. Like I just went to bed in my new apartment. Only the smell and the sight of the ceiling, when I opened my eyes, told me that this was not so. I'm in the hospital. Not at home. All because of that bastard old man who beat me up on my birthday. I sat down with my hands behind me and examined myself. The body did not hurt, but if you listen, I feel a slight burning sensation under the skin. It's like ants run along the paths and touch me from the inside. Almost imperceptibly and even a little pleasant, it should be noted. My right hand, although it did not hurt, was in bandages. As is the leg. And chest. And even the head. I don't remember how they hit me in the leg, so it was after I passed out. The only clothes I'm wearing are small soft blue shorts. Otherwise, I'm naked. Getting out of bed, I went to the window to look at how it was in general on the street. And it was good there. Sunny weather with light breeze and occasional clouds. I think today is the perfect day to walk and relax outside with friends, parents, siblings. But I had no desire, no smile on my face from such fantasies. I looked and thought only that all those who live there, outside the window, are my potential enemies. They all spew out negativity and the most disgusting feelings as soon as I appear in front of them. What did I do to them? Don't care about the reason. The main result is that they hate me, they consider me a demon. I have no choice but to answer them the same. I stood like that, looking out the window, for perhaps half an hour, or even more. My thoughts carried me away, not wanting to let go. I began to think. I did not want to rage, fool around, play and have fun. All those desires just disappeared. Instead, for some reason, I began to think about everything that was happening to me. The door opened and a girl entered. She looks to me to be about 14 years old. She looked at me, then put down some kind of bundle and left the room, closing the door behind her. I turned and looked out the window again. This time I was interrupted after only 10 minutes. An old man came through the door, came up to me and stood behind me, also staring out the window. I saw his reflection in the window and continued to ignore his presence. "Young man, are you all right? I see that you are already on your feet and do not experience any difficulties. But just last night you had an open fracture on your right arm, a closed fracture on your left leg and a closed fracture of 6 ribs with cracks on 2 more. Skull cracks and severe concussion, internal bleeding in many places, and in general you have lost a lot of blood for your age, and 6.5 hours ago you had a severe nervous exhaustion, the release of a huge amount of hormones into the blood, in particular a huge amount of adrenaline. Because of this, some microglands in your head were damaged, literally chemically burned out. I think you will notice the consequences of this in a week or 2, and quite clearly. How are you feeling?" "Amazing. I don't feel anything bad." "Wonderful. You have excellent regeneration, young man. Simply supernatural. What even with the help of doctors heals in a week, you, almost without our help, recovered in less than 12 hours. Incredible recovery speed. Clear. When will I be released?" I ask, continuing to look out the window. "You're absolutely fine. We just don't have any reason to keep you. Even the depletion of resources and that, surprisingly, no. This, by the way, surprised us especially strongly. I think in an hour we will arrange everything, and you will be able to leave the hospital with peace of mind." "Clear. We'll wait. Thank you." The old man left the same way as he came in, quietly and without disturbing me. And an hour and a half later I was on my way. Returning to my apartment, I went to the bed and just lay down on it. I need to think. Walking through the forest near the village, I pondered the vicissitudes of fate. I used to be considered a demon, it terrified me and hit me in the heart, but after I saw the real demon, their attempts to insult me with such a word sound more like a compliment to me. And for this, all you need is to experience the greatest horror in your life. Think, what a trifle. The consequences that Iranian from the hospital was talking about, I noticed after only 5 days, when I decided to cut my hair shorter. About a quarter of my hair in different parts of the head began to grow gray, and not the usual bright yellow. It probably doesn't look very nice from the outside, but I didn't care. Ever since I woke up in the hospital, I spent 2 days thinking about everything that was happening. I remember everything that happened to me in my life. Everyone I met, saw, and so on. I discussed what and why they did, if it applies to me. And after that I tried to find information on how to become stronger. For this I returned to the hospital. In the hospital, I met one single person who did not have negative feelings for me. It was that old man. Even that girl knew about me, and although she did not show it, she felt a certain dislike. In general, this is how most everyone in the village behaves. They just radiate negativity towards me. But there are some bastards who go further. Someone insults, someone gives a cuff or a kick. Quite occasionally there are such scum as that old man. In my memory, he is the second. I ran away from the first one. And I've never met anyone like that on all days except my birthday. The same Iranian did not experience any negativity. Nothing at all. Just an empty space, and boredom. I decided to find him. It was difficult to find him. They just didn't want to let me in, but in the end I was able to get through, just by walking away and waiting for the moment when the bastard that was interfering with me left for some reason. In the same place, as imperceptibly as I could, I went inside and began to look for the right person. The search was difficult. The hospital, although it does not look too big, nevertheless has a considerable staff, and therefore I spent about 40 minutes just looking for him. It was possible to find him when he left the restroom. "I'm sorry Iranian-san for not knowing how to address you, and also for possibly distracting you, but I have questions that only you can answer." A young man with amazing regeneration. "I remember you. I remember, and I must say, in your own words you interested me. There are no particularly severe cases at the moment, so the other Iranian will be able to cope, and I can afford a small lunch. And you say, what interested you so much that made you find me?" "Yes, first, please, call me Naruto, so I'm more comfortable." "Fine. It's not a problem, Naruto. My name is Togura. Togura-san, I was wondering how to become stronger." "Stronger? This is where training can help. Just do physical exercises. Which? How to fulfill them? How many?" How much stronger will I get and how long will it take? I asked questions, trying to get as much information out of Togura as possible. You just turned 6. Are you going to the academy soon? Right. Less than a month left, you know. I certainly know children who have already become full-fledged shinobi at your age, but the current generation is not like that. Now you can't find a peer of your age who would ask such questions. However, I see no reason to withhold this information. Workouts can be very different. The main thing is that they give a load on the body. More precisely, on the muscle tissue and nerve fibers of the body. This harms the body, muscle tissue is torn, tiny tears appear. It hurts. Not immediately, but then the pain will be. But after, when the muscles regenerate, new muscle material will grow on these gaps, in addition to the old one. This will go up to a certain limit, until you hit the purely physical limit of your body. Further growth of muscle tissue will go to the detriment of speed and agility. Then, if you lead the right training regimen, then instead of increasing muscle mass, its quality begins to increase. Muscles become better, they begin to produce more of the yang component of the chakra. Then the growth of strength and speed goes already to the chakra. Muscles do not grow, but they become stronger, more elastic, faster. This happens to the whole body. Is everything clear? Not really. What are nerve fibers? What is the yang component of a chakra? What is a chakra? How does the growth of strength and speed transfer to the chakra and why does it begin to depend on it? Oh, so many questions, okay. Let's go, this is my office, come in, have some tea, and I'll tell you for now about your questions. We went into one of the rooms, where I sat on the sofa, while Togura was making tea and taking out some sweets. Soon I was sitting and drinking hot tea, eating sweets. As Togura said, this is one of the many gifts from his patients. He has a lot of them, so he doesn't even know what to do with, not throw away or sell. Somehow it wouldn't look good. And here is such a great utilizer of sweets. Returning to your questions, nerve fibers are such a small part of your body that conducts small electrical impulses from your brain in your head to the right muscles to contract. It allows you to stand, talk, breathe, move, basically. The yang component of the chakra is the energy that is called bodily, or vital, or simply yang. It is produced by every cell in your body. Some more, some less. Most of all, the yang component is produced by nervous tissue. But only 15% more than muscle. But muscle tissue is many times larger, and therefore, in the end, it produces many times more bodily energy. And the stronger, better quality muscles you have, the more yang component they produce, the more resilient you are, the harder it is to kill you, and the stronger you are. Chakra, on the other hand, many say different things, but it is known for sure that a person produces bodily energy with his body, which we call yang. Our mind you, not the brain, but the mind, produces mental energy. Mental energy, passing through the soul of a shinobi, combines with spiritual energy and turns into what we call the yin component of the chakra. After that, the yin and yang of the components of the chakra are mixed and the chakra itself is formed. This formation occurs in a place called the focus of the chakra. From there, the chakra diverges throughout the entire chakra circulation system that is in the human body. No, if a person is opened, then you will not find this system, like a circulatory system, but if you use special seals, dojutsu, techniques or abilities of especially strong sensors, then this system can be perceived quite clearly. The Hyuga stand out in particular. Thanks to them, we know a lot about the structure of the SCC. As for your last questions, everyone has their limits. After reaching these limits, it is almost impossible to develop physically. More precisely, it is possible, but the speed slows down many times, if not by orders of magnitude. And the chakra allows you to bring the body beyond its limits for a while. By strengthening your body with chakra, a shinobi becomes stronger and faster many times over, and the stronger you are initially, the stronger chakra makes you. Your body gradually gets used to such speed, strength, and this is accompanied by the fact that it strengthens itself and becomes qualitatively better. Accordingly, the more chakra and primordial strength, the greater the growth rate and growth in general. Because the chakra becomes the factor which allows her to become even stronger and the development of shinobi begins to depend on her. That's all. It's clear. I have even more questions. Well, that's not surprising. Let's continue, I still have a couple of hours. Commentary on Part 2. Here was the beta. The Cat 2, Part 3. I have many advantages over anyone else. All my pros and cons were clearly explained to me. I am the owner of colossal volumes of chakra, which will only grow in the future, and how much the volume will increase will depend on my training. This will allow me to master many techniques as I will be able to repeat them over and over again without falling with chakra exhaustion. In the beginning, it won't be very noticeable, because the initial techniques will require a small amount of chakra, but the further you go, the more it will be noticeable. My regeneration is mostly chakra-based. My chakra is very heavy, dense and poisonous to other shinobi, and the greater the difference in strength, the more pronounced these poisonous properties will be. But for me, this chakra is the strongest stimulant for recovery. My body regenerates dozens of times faster than any other shinobi because of her, without getting hurt. As the chakra can turn into the necessary elements, so inside my body it is able to condense even more and transform into the substances necessary for the body. In which, the body and the chakra decide for themselves. It is very costly and, as the old man explained to me, I spend a reserve of 3 or 4 jonin on my regeneration in the hospital alone. That's just for me, though this is not a trifle, but not at all a critical indicator. Purely biological regeneration is also higher than normal, 6 times. That is, I will repair damage to the body 6 times faster without the impact of my chakra. And I was told that this gives a huge advantage in physical training. Microtraumas in the muscles will recover almost immediately, but at the same time, muscle tissues will more and more adapt to the loads, and very soon there will come a moment when these loads will not cause me discomfort. This means that in order to achieve a certain level of physical abilities, I need many times less time and effort. No, I will need the same amount of strength, it will just take less time to use them to achieve the same effect. And I was told that this gives a huge advantage in physical training. Microtraumas in the muscles will recover almost immediately, but at the same time, muscle tissues will more and more adapt to the loads, and very soon there will come a moment when these loads will not cause me discomfort. This means that in order to achieve a certain level of physical abilities, I need many times less time and effort. No, I will need the same amount of strength, it will just take less time to use them to achieve the same effect. And I was told that this gives a huge advantage in physical training. Microtraumas in the muscles will recover almost immediately, but at the same time, muscle tissues will more and more adapt to the loads, and very soon there will come a moment when these loads will not cause me discomfort. This means that in order to achieve a certain level of physical abilities, I need many times less time and effort. No, I will need the same amount of strength, it will just take less time to use them to achieve the same effect. Another advantage I had, again coming out of regeneration, was my stamina. It, although at a certain threshold it starts to be spent faster than I recover, allows me to significantly postpone the moment of my critical fatigue, after which I will no longer be able to physically continue training. Well, my main advantage was that, having impressive volumes of chakra, I can strengthen myself so much that my body will begin to develop in leaps and bounds, at great speed. But with all this, there was a huge minus, which nullifies my first and last advantage. Control. I don't have it at all. Namely, he is responsible for the quality of the performed shinobi techniques and for how well I can strengthen/speed up/strengthen myself. Without control, even with my volumes, this figure will be very, very small. And also, from the same problem, in conjunction with a small additional problem, a new problem follows, which, frankly, disappointed me a little. The path of Irionin is closed to me, at least until I bring my chakra control up to the level of A-rank Irionin. And this is just a glimpse. In fact, it is not known what level of control I will need to become an Irionin, because specifically for this I will need to learn not only to form a honey chakra, but also to preliminarily isolate and remove the poisonous component of my chakra from there. And for all this, monstrous control is needed. So I'm very limited here. However, that didn't stop me from asking for a first aid course. Taguda was not against it, rather he was even glad that not all children were turned in battles and training, but they might even want to save lives. I needed it not so much to help others as to be able to help myself. Why so and why? And who helped me? Who helped me in these 6 years? My parents abandoned me, or died, or something else, it doesn't matter. They couldn't help me. And it seems that they were still those creatures, because they did not have a single friend or girlfriend, relative or just close acquaintances. 6 years have passed, and I have never received help from anyone. Well, don't count the fact that I was taken to the hospital as help. I doubt it will help. Rather, a sense of duty or even a forced measure. Therefore, for all 6 years without waiting for help from anyone, I'm not going to hope and wait for her in the future. And how could I hope for a miracle before? Believe in him. That dream with Axel seemed to heal me, allowed me to notice and understand what I had not seen before and stubbornly did not want to notice. No. Enough. Now I will not rely on anyone. Now we should proceed from the idea that only I can help myself, and if someone helps me, then there must be some reason and you need to understand this reason, realize and, if an opportunity presents itself, use this reason. The main thing is to have such an opportunity. That only I can help myself, and if someone helps me, then there must be some reason and you need to understand this reason, realize and, if the opportunity arises, use this reason. The main thing is to have such an opportunity. That only I can help myself, and if someone helps me, then there must be some reason and you need to understand this reason, realize and, if the opportunity arises, use this reason. The main thing is to have such an opportunity. The only thing that Taguda advised me for the development of control was the standard leaf control. Standard, yes, I would like to know in general what standards exist. Yes, and this is a standard exercise for those who at least know how to release chakra. I can't. I actually felt it quite recently. However, here it is worth noting that I have some features. I feel chakra all the time. That is, without seals or concentration, just feel. Gradually, I stopped paying attention to it, as we all do not pay attention to how we breathe, but it is worth listening, and you will feel your chest heaving. It was the same with me. I just need to think, and I began to feel the chakra. Taguda said that this is quite rare and is due to the fact that the chakra has drastically changed its signature, as Taguda put it, and the body, accustomed to the old indicators from birth, he began to feel it differently, ceasing to weed out this feeling for the mind. Only now I deliberately use this feeling often, because the same effect should not be, and I should not lose this feeling. In later stages, and even now, this will give me some concessions in terms of developing control. After all, I will feel any change in the direction or speed of the movement of the chakra. Taguda asked me for a day to do something, and when I came back to his office, he slipped me a small scroll. What is this? I asked, unwrapping the gift. This is a training program that I put together based on what I know about you. Do you want to become stronger? Then you will follow this program. I won't tell you anything, keep track of whether you train or not. I do not need it. You want to become stronger, and if your desire is strong, you will strive to complete all the exercises. At first and for a long time you will not succeed. Your body simply cannot do everything right now, so the workout will go in circles with relatively little load in each circle. The load is complex and loads all the muscles. It would hurt a normal shinobi, but with your regeneration, the effect will be the opposite and will appear soon enough. Ideally, you should complete 500 circles a day, and when you repeat 1,000 circles a day, you can come to me for a new program. However, I think that in the next 3 years you are unlikely to come for this purpose. Any questions? No. As long as it's clear to me. But if anything, I'll find you. Thank you. It's not difficult for me, Naruto-kun. Moreover, sometimes some shinobi come up to me so that I can draw up a training program for them. You're lucky, I usually charge them a lot of money or knowledge for such work. Now go, I have another half an hour of rest, and then I take over for duty, so I would like to rest. Silently, I left the office and, having rolled up the scroll, quickly went to my apartment. Arriving at the place, I sat down on the bed and began to read the scroll, memorizing it carefully. In general, I have a good memory, so 20 minutes later I went to the forest, to the clearing I looked at last walk. There was nothing in the clearing, but there shouldn't be anything superfluous in the planned exercises. Just me in space. Well, let's get started. 4.5 hours later I was lying in the same clearing, red and with a heart that seemed to just stop. It was difficult to breathe, his chest could hardly rise, letting in air, his hands were constantly trembling and the last 10 minutes were very painful. A little later, the rest of the body ached. Taguda described the feeling that shinobi feel when they start new training and drive the body to such a state that they cannot get up in the morning from pain. He described in detail the causes and consequences, and also colorfully described the feeling of that pain. And I felt this pain now, in just 10 minutes. I felt that the longer I lay down, the more active my chakra became. And half an hour later I felt a strange feeling all over my body. Raising my head with difficulty from the grass, I looked at myself and my eyes almost flew out of my head. My whole body seemed to be smoking, releasing a dense and heavy dark purple fog, which rose about 5 centimeters, and then slowly descended and crawled along me to the ground. And the grass around me very quickly curled up and literally died under the influence of this fog. At the same time, I felt a strong sense of relief. Another hour of such a rest and I got up from the ground so easily, without pain and any negative feelings, as if there had never been such at all, as if that training had never happened. That's what it means, excellent regeneration. Around me was a patch of dead vegetation with a radius of 1.5 meters. And the grass here was really dead, soft, it seemed a little more and it would spread in my hands. Nasty feeling. I wanted to eat. I went to my house and ate custard noodles there. I have a lot of it. Taguda said that one of my benefits stemming from good regeneration is being able to be really omnivorous without caring about the usefulness of food, and I am not at all afraid of weak poisons, and stronger poisons are weaker. It was already sunset outside, so I just undressed and went to bed. Sleeping is so much more pleasant than in pajamas. Commentary on Part 3. Thanks to an unknown sponsor who transferred money to me yesterday. Know that I do not forget and this chapter is dedicated to you. Here was the beta. Caught a couple of errors. Cat, Part 4. In theory, you can get used to training, and they will no longer seem so heavy and exhausting. No, they will still be difficult to pass, but not like the first time. But this applies to workouts in which the loads increase at the same slow rate, or the loads remain at the same level. Taguda gave me a program that is quite simple in itself, but with each repetition of the circle you get more and more tired. And the stronger and more enduring you become, the more circles you are allowed to do. And in the end, you will get tired anyway, just like the first time, just by doing more circles. It's been less than a month since I got my apartment, and a little less since I started training. I have spent the same amount of time on first aid courses, and even though I haven't completed those courses yet, I will soon be able to be considered a D-Rankai Ryanin, which will be my maximum for a long time. And then came that very moment. Historical for every future shinobi. Admission to the academy. I stood among a large crowd of people and watched them. I knew many of them, because I met them quite often on the streets of Konoha, but I had never communicated with them. I used to be in a shelter, it was not up to that at all, and they let us out of there very rarely. Then I had a dream and I didn't feel like it at all. There were many people from the clans. The most famous and not so famous. The Uchihas are standing there are Hyuga, Inazuka, Aburame, Yamanaka, Nara, Akimichi and many others. There were also many clanless ones. Among them was me. I was dressed in training tights, normal sandals with a full ankle circumference, a black t-shirt, like a less easily soiled, light jacket, which is needed to keep out the cold breeze. That's the whole outfit. I was often looked at with different feelings and views. Someone interested and with curiosity, I'm sure they were interested in my quarter-gray head, on which my hair had grown a little, someone with contempt or anger. There were few of them, and these feelings came from the clanless, to whom my parents told a lot about me. Even now, some parents, stealing glances at me, whispered something to their children. Most of all I was impressed by clans. They didn't care at all. No, for some reason they showed interest specifically in me, but they did not experience any negative feelings. As are their children. They only beamed with curiosity, although many of them did not show it. Just like the Hyuga. And the Uchiha. Distribution soon began, in which children were assigned to classes according to their abilities. All the clans fell into at least B class, of the clanless, only one girl with pink hair got into the A class, no one else. I also fell into this class. What I understood well a long time ago is that my innate chakra reserve, though not unique, is extremely rare. It is unlikely that I would have been lowered. After an hour and a half, the distribution was finally completed, and we ended up in the classes where we will study in the future. Everyone sat where they were comfortable. I sat down in the middle. I need knowledge about the chakra, and indeed any knowledge that will help me somehow become stronger. So it's simply irrational to fumble in the classroom. On the first day, we were all greeted, introduced to each other and told what we would need to study, how it would be, and when we needed to come. Time at the academy flew by very quickly, and I left there, it seemed, a couple of minutes after the start of classes, although more than 2 hours had passed while all these conversations and stories were going on. After the academy, I did not want to stay anywhere, so I immediately went to my favorite clearing in the forest. I need to exercise. Practice a lot. In general, this is a great way to pass the time. And I wanted to pass the time very much. Classes at the academy should begin tomorrow, and I wanted to get there as soon as possible. That's just time, as if on purpose, flowed slowly. I walked 49 circles, after which I again lay down in a dead spot, habitually feeling first the growing pain in my whole body, and then a swift relief. I got up again and headed home, and the next day I was the very first at the academy and sat quietly there, staring out the window, looking at the street. Soon other students began to appear. The first to arrive was Haruno Sakura, the pink-haired girl, the clanless one of the two, if you count me, who could enter the A class. All ready for her came, apparently, her friend from the Yamanaka clan named Ino. Further, other students began to appear one after another. 20 minutes later the teacher arrived and the lesson began. At the academy, we were taught reading, writing, mathematics, geography and other sciences. In addition, there were taijutsu classes, kunai and shuriken throwing lessons, development of strategic and tactical thinking. 2 months later, we were taught hand seals that allow you to control the chakra. There were a total of 12 commonly known standard hand seals. We will study them throughout the rest of the year, 9 months, among which there will be holidays every 6 months for 2 weeks. It would seem that there is nothing wrong with these 12 seals, but in fact, mastering them is not an easy task. You need to constantly concentrate on the meaning of this seal when you put it together, so that over time it will begin to work. Each of the seals had its own name: tiger, sheep, snake, dog, pig, rat, horse, bird, monkey, bull, rabbit, dragon. Even in the first months, students formed their own communication groups, where everyone got to know each other well and actively communicated with each other. They had their own circles of interests, which I did not enter at all. Immediately after the end of classes, I went to my clearing. I did not catch the eye of the villagers or tried to keep these meetings to a minimum. Gradually, this led to the fact that people began, as it were, to forget about me. My slightly changed image also contributed to this. In addition to this, I rubbed the cream bought in a cosmetic store with a distinctive feature: scars on the cheeks in the form of a mustache. It helped, albeit not immediately, but I was in no hurry. But today was a special day. Despite the fact that I did not walk around the city, passing along the same route, an amazing meeting took place today. I saw an old man walking along the street. Everything would be fine if I didn't recognize him. This is the same bitch that beat me and inflicted a bunch of fractures on me. I remembered everything and did not forget, I just ignored this memory for now. But since the opportunity has already presented itself, how can I pass by? Then a rather boring surveillance of the object, the old man, began, that is, during which he went shopping and talked with a smile with other people. Finally, he came home. I memorized where he was and looked around the area. After that, he looked for the neighbors and for those who live in the house. At least when I was in the house there was no one except the old man himself. Great! Turning around, I went to the clearing. I won't sleep tonight, but it's worth it. For half a year since the beginning of my studies at the academy, I began to perform 73 circles. Several times I went to old man Taguda. He said that I was well ahead of schedule, already now at the level of a graduate of the Shinobi Academy. The training was successful, and I was able to master the 74th round. After resting in my dead spot, I got up, shook myself, and headed to the right house. More than half a year has passed, but today the demon will come to you, bastard. Commentary on Part 4. Thanks again to the sponsors. I'm surprised at your generosity. No. Really? Right in the middle of a couple comes an SMS alert. Nice. Here was the beta. And the cat did not get any mistakes. Part 5. The police force in Konoha is made up of members of the Uchiha clan. One of the great founding clans that possess one of the great dojutsu. Taguda, talking about chakra, touched on this topic and, after my inquiries, spoke in more detail about these dojutsu and Kekkeigenkai in general. An amazing phenomenon, this is a limitation of blood, which gives great opportunities to the owner, unique techniques and abilities that are already initially stronger than standard shinobi knowledge. And this Uchiha Sharingan is one such example. It allows you to accelerate perception and reaction in the early stages of development, and with the development of these eyes, more and more incredible possibilities appear. To see the movement of the chakra and the smallest contractions of muscle tissue, which allows, by analyzing all this, to predict the movements of opponents, opens up an ideal memory, normal and muscle, which allows you to copy your opponent's fighting style right in the battle, and chakra vision allows you to copy any technique, unless they are tied to the use of Kekkeigenkai. They are said to be able to copy vehicles during battle and use them even faster than the vehicle's original owner. Sharingan allows you to throw off genjutsu from yourself and, on the contrary, create genjutsu that is much stronger and of higher quality. Togura told me that he was one of the few shinobi who lived during the founding of Konoha. And he found both Hashirama Senju and his best friend and worst enemy, Madara Uchiha. And it is said that this Madara possessed some new form of Sharingan that was stronger than the last stage of his development. And he was the first of the entire clan to be able to awaken this form of dojutsu. And considering. But not all Uchihas are proficient with the Sharingan. No, he is not awakened by everyone, even among strong shinobi, and this is well known, so you should not hope that every Uchiha you meet will shine with his dojutsu. That was exactly what I was hoping for. I just walked around the area, even though it was already late in the evening, and carefully looked out for patrols from the Uchiha squads. It took me only 40 minutes to realize that these detachments were patrolling the area near the house of the old man I was tracking down every 15 minutes. This should suffice according to my plans. When the next detachment passed through the right place and turned around the corner, I carefully, very quietly, stepping only on the stones, jumped over the fence. Yes, jumped over a fence twice my height. But now it's normal for me. Stepping on the stones, I quietly crept up to the house, after which I hid around the corner of the house and, after waiting 5 minutes, made sure that the new patrol had left. Further, I walked around the house and saw a slightly ajar window in the backyard. No, you can't get into it. But I don't need it. But, most likely, this means that the owner of the house, because usually the windows are closed when leaving somewhere. Instead, I made my way to the door that leads to the back patio. Here the door was not closed, unlike the main one. In general, if you think about it, this is true. For ordinary people, a closed main door is enough to understand that you don't need to go in, and walls won't help against shinobi. And now I opened the door, which barely perceptibly creaked. Having opened it enough, I went inside and also quietly closed it, after which I walked around the house near the walls, since practice from the shelter tells me that the boards there, if they creak, are the quietest. And so it was, even if 3 times the floor creaked under my light weight, but very quietly. Having passed to the second floor of the house mansion, where the bedroom is most often made, however, this is an old man, maybe it's not like that here, but what now? There were 3 doors on the second floor. All are closed. Approaching each of them in turn, I listened to the sounds inside, and on the second door, between the other 2, I heard a barely perceptible snore. Well, I have found you. Quietly opening the door, which, by the way, opened completely silently, it seems that the hinges had been greased just recently, I found myself inside. The room was not too big. The bed in it occupied a third of the free space, and this old man slept on it. I saw his face despite the darkness. In general, in the dark I began to see much better in recent months, but this is so, a trifle. I wasn't going to torture the old man or deliberately torture him, beat him up, as he did to me. No, I'll just kill him. Without special and deliberate cruelty, I will simply kill in the easiest way for me. No doubt going to the bed, I raised my right hand to eye level, concentrated, and a dark purple mist began to melt from my palm, and then I simply lowered my hand and put it, without even touching, on the old man's chest. He immediately began to breathe faster, and I began to hear the beating of his heart. A mist of chakra, so poisonous that the plants died almost immediately, descended from my palm and transferred to the old man, soaking into him. The old man opened his eyes and, with wildly bulging eyes, immediately spotted me. First, seconds of misunderstanding, and after that, recognition. Why you? The old man whispered hoarsely when I already removed my hand and the chakra stopped flowing into him. You called me a demon, old man, beating me for it, you almost killed me, but for some reason you stopped. Thank you. But you shouldn't have done it. Now we have switched places, but I will not beat you and I am not going to leave a creature like you alive. You will die. I looked at his chest, where a black spot was growing. It happened fast enough to see the growth process. You're already dead, you just haven't fully understood it yet. Farewell, old man. Congratulations, you have become the first corpse in my account. I spoke the last words to the dead man, as his heart stopped, his chest stopped heaving, and his eyes glazed over. And now it remains to cover the traces as much as possible. Returning home, I looked out the window, where I could see the faint glow of a fire far off to the side. I took revenge, now it's even easier. Turning away from the window, I lay down to sleep on the bed. The mood was great. Commentary on Part 5. Dedicated to the reader who gave me an improved account. Thanks for the gift. Here was the beta. The cat was not useless. Part 6. I don't know how the Uchiha or someone else is investigating, but no one came to me either in a day, or in 2, or in a month. I behaved exactly the same as before. And why should I change my behavior? As I studied, and I study, as I trained, and I continue to train. Unless on vacation for 2 weeks I gave myself a day off just to sleep well, on the rest of the holidays I did a triple rate of training. It was hard in the process, but always after an hour and a half I was as good as new and did not experience any pain or heaviness of the loaded muscles. And I could go on. Perhaps, for these 2 weeks my progress was the highest. The holidays were over and I went back to my old schedule, only going to bed later as the laps took longer and longer to complete. Over the next 6 months, every day we studied mathematics, writing, geography, other sciences, learned to throw shurikens and kunai, studied taijutsu and genjutsu. More precisely, we learned to recognize the presence of genjutsu and get rid of it, as well as the principles of genjutsu. Gradually, changes began to take place in the classes. Someone left the established circles of communication and moved to others. There were changes in the relationship between friends and foes. New groups appeared, old ones disappeared. And so in a circle. Being aloof from all this, it is easy to observe the picture in general and notice such fermentations. Over time, the leaders in our class stood out. Loners also stood out, such as me, Uchiha Sasuke, Shino Aburame, Hinata Hyuga. I tried to get to know them, not wanting to get involved with groups of other students. It was not immediately possible to get to know the Uchiha. In the class he did not make friends with anyone, holding his face with a brick, but usually he is met by his older brother and sometimes his mother. That's where it really blooms. Bright emotions appear on his face, almost constantly he had a happy smile. When I watched Sasuke and his family, I really envied him. I don't know who my parents were, but sometimes at such moments I imagined myself in his place, and in the place of his parents, my own. At such moments, a smile appeared on my face. One day I was able to find a common topic for conversation with Sasuke. It turned out to be training. He turned out to have a fairly simple dream, to surpass his older brother, who is considered the genius of the clan. Sasuke is way behind him. And on this basis, we struck up a good acquaintance, which in 3 months grew into a normal friendship. We talked with him mostly on general topics, but sometimes Sasuke talked about his successes, about different cases in his family and how he trained with Itachi, his older brother. In short, Sasuke, if you talked to him, turned out to be that chatterbox. He was simply brought up in the clan so that he behaved properly with outsiders. Probably, I was able to enter the zone of trust, and he stopped considering me an outsider. Don't know. It was easier with Shino Aburame. He, though clan, but his character is more sociable, although the manner of communication is somewhat strange. Many do not want to communicate with him because of insects. In particular, beetles. Shino is dressed in a spacious hooded jacket with a high collar and large sleeves, and this is done for a reason. Thousands of bugs live under his clothes, and not only under his clothes, but also inside their clan members. When I found out about this, I winced, but Shino just grinned and said that such a symbiosis between clan members and bugs has been going on since childhood, and they get used to these bugs and their constant consumption of chakra. This gives them many opportunities and abilities, but Shino immediately said that he was forbidden to talk about this, since these are clan secrets. He also showed me his bugs and some of them even tried to eat my chakra, but Shino quickly stopped this process. Since such daredevils died immediately, my chakra turned out to be too poisonous for them. Shino, as he learned about such a peculiarity of mine, tried to keep the bugs away from me so that they would not die for nothing. In short, a good guy. We got along pretty quickly and easily. Both are single. Only if I had my own reasons, already more or less known, then he was avoided because of a mixture of horror, disgust and similar feelings, including fear. With Hinata Hyuga, it turned out to be both easier and more difficult at the same time. She was very kind and good, soft and sociable. But at the same time, she is terribly shy and insecure. I didn't even imagine that such people could even exist, but here she is, sitting with me in the same class. And it turned out to be much easier to get to know her, but the main difficulty was getting used to her self-doubt and starting to communicate with her as if there was no such thing. Over time, in just a couple of months, she stopped stuttering when communicating with me and speaking in short monosyllabic sentences, instead speaking a lot in volume, smiling during a conversation and not embarrassed to talk to me. It is possible that I was able to enter her circle of trust. Periodically, I took myself a weekend, about once a month, when I went out for a walk with one of my friends around Konoha. With Sasuke, we most often went to the training grounds, several times we even went to his clan quarter to the training grounds of his clan and trained there together. More precisely, for the most part he trained, because I had to succumb to him a lot. At first he was offended by this, but then once I fought him with all my strength and beat him so that he spent a week in the hospital, and every day I went and apologized to him. After that, he was no longer offended by the fact that I underestimate my strength in order to be on the same level with him. And with Shino Aburame, we often walked through the forest and just talked. We talked a lot, on a variety of topics. After a while, we began to talk about what a chakra is, where it came from, how it appeared, and so on. These conversations and our reflections were so captivating that we did not notice how the whole day passed. With Hinata Hyuga, we often walked through the forest and the park. I did not like the emotional background of the people around me, and in general I did not treat the residents very favorably. Hinata, in principle, did not like large crowds of people, so we went to less passable places. And once because of this, not the most pleasant situation happened. Commentary on Part 6. Bethanek. Here was the beta. The Cat 2, Part 7. The park was, as always, pleasant and fresh. There were no people here, and if there were, then only a few that did not interfere with our walk in any way. In general, walking with Hinata is perhaps the most pleasant of all my acquaintances. Not because she is close to me, I just have not met a single person who would radiate such a range of emotions. There was a lot of embarrassment that constantly appears with me, embarrassment, timidity, all this is mixed in such a way that it's just nice for me to be close to the source of such a cocktail of emotions. And from her came emotions, love. I think it was just such an emotion, because Sasuke experienced the same, only in a slightly different tone, when he met with his family, especially with his older brother and mother. There were similar emotions here, but they were directed, surprisingly, at me. Hinata, can you answer one of my questions, please? I broke the silence we were in. In general, both she and I liked to be in the park with me like this in silence, which I clearly felt from her emotions, but I liked being next to her, while not being distracted by the negative emotions of everyone else. Yes, Naruto-kun, I'll try. She replied. Tell me, just, I beg you, honestly, why do you like me? I asked right away. I just didn't get an answer right away. Noticing that Hinata was lagging behind, I turned to her and was surprised to see how she was fingering her fingers with great speed, while blushing, and looking exclusively anywhere, but not at me. Strange, I did not expect such a reaction to my words. And Naruto-kun, I'm sorry. Why you? Hinata started to stutter, but I interrupted her. Hinata, wait, calm down. I went up to her and took her by the shoulders, after which I continued, calm down, breathe, collect your thoughts, think about what you want to say, every word, and then, calming down and evening out your breathing, speak. Come on, I'm taking my time, so it's okay. Most importantly, be confident. Hinata seemed to blush even more at my actions. But then she began to breathe deeply, closing her eyes, and barely audibly mumbling something under her breath. This went on for several minutes, when, finally, she looked up. Naruto, back then, before the academy, Hinata began to say, and I immediately began checking my memories for our meetings with Hinata before entering the academy. And, surprisingly, I quickly found this, it was a long time ago, almost 3 years ago, even before Axel came to me, you helped me, saved me, then they beat you. Even your scarf was torn, you then allowed me to take it myself, only later, but then, you did not give up, there were more of them, they were stronger, but you still went out against them to protect me, you are the complete opposite of me. I'm weak, and you're strong, I can't overcome myself, show willpower, I'm scared to do something wrong, you, let it fail, let it hurt, it's hard, but still, you keep repeating attempts until you succeed. That is what I consider strength. And that's how, Hinata, of all my few acquaintances, and this is Sasuke and Shino, it is the most pleasant for me to be with you. I like you because of who you are. You're timid, shy, sweet. I feel your feelings and therefore, being next to you, I get pleasure and enjoyment. I like you, Hinata, and I'm also glad that now I understand why you have such feelings for me. You are the only one who treats me kindly. I have not met a single person in the village who would have felt good feelings for me. None, there were, bad and terrible, such as hatred, there was, but love, kindness, this has never happened. You first. For me, these feelings are completely new and unfamiliar. Thank you for them, but... Naruto, why does everyone treat you like that? You didn't do anything wrong, why do you hate? She asked, and I noticed moisture accumulating in her eyes. Will it pay? Don't cry, Hinata. I don't know what I did wrong for the village, but they call me a demon, I said, and then added in a barely audible voice to myself, although I'm still very, very far from a demon, and again continued in a familiar voice, who called me a bastard. Sometimes I think it's all about my parents. It is possible that they did something so terrible and disgusting that hatred for them poured out on me while they themselves fled or, more likely, simply died. I just can't think of any other options right now. I see. I'm sorry, Naruto. Wow. Look who's here. This is the main troublemaker of the entire academy walking around here, and even with his bride. Naruto, right? You are usually nowhere to be found. When the lessons are over, you always run away so fast that it's impossible to find you. And you do not communicate with anyone, you do not say anything to anyone. You think you're the coolest, right? Looking at the source of the voice, I was somewhat surprised to see Inuzuka Kiba, who was doing something with a group of guys of our age. If I'm not mistaken, these are also students of the academy, only from the lower grades from the B class. Well, what hatched? Commentary on Part 7. Answered. Made a couple of mistakes. Cat. Part 8. Why are you saying this? Do you want to piss me off? So that I pounced on you, and you could beat me? I grin at the last question, imagining this picture, but you know what? See how it turns out. You are now hoping to provoke and offend me by trying to offend the Hyuga clan's Heim along the way. Moreover, not just a Heim, but a very sweet and pleasant girl. Do you need it? I asked, because I really didn't want to beat him, like the others that gathered in the same company with him, because they would also rush into battle, succumbing to the herd instinct. You never know what problems I will have with the clans from this. Do I need it? Obviously not now. I am still too weak to oppose the clans alone. Well, the opportunity to make a compliment to Hinata. Togura said that any girl likes compliments, regardless of age and position. Why not an opportunity? Yes, and I really liked the emotions that flared up at that moment in her. Do you think you are the smartest, or what? I am Inuzuka Kiba, the fastest student at the academy. I will beat you myself, without any provocation. Well, another time we will somehow solve this issue. And we have to go, bye-bye Kiba. At the same time, I pull Hinata aside behind me. What, you decided to run away, coward? I knew that you were a weakling, so you are also a coward. Kiba yelled at me. Kiba, I said calmly and quietly, knowing from Shino that he had heightened hearing, I just don't care about weaklings like you, so I'm leaving. I turned around and Hinata and I walked on. More precisely, rather, I pulled her along, albeit gently, because she did not know what to do in this situation and felt out of place, and even held a grudge against Kiba, as he interrupted the silence and prevented us from walking further. But for Kiba, everything ended too quickly, and he decided to fix it. Roaring like a beast, he ran towards me with the clear intention of attacking, which he confirmed with subsequent words, shouting them already at a fairly short distance. Well, turn around and fight, coward. I, of course, tracked his movements all the time, feeling the location of the source of aggressive emotions. When there was very little distance between us, I turned around as quickly as possible through the side from which Hinata was standing and kicked him in the head with a backhand. He hit about half, but that was enough for Kiba, who jumped on me, to simply be blown away in the air, and since he had no point of support, he began to slow down only 2.5 meters from the point of impact, rolling head over heels. Having stopped, he remained lying down and did not get up. Judging by the heaving of the chest, he simply lost consciousness. I told you, I don't care about such weaklings. I said a little more loudly and angrily, and after that I turned around and Hinata and I went on. We walked towards her quarter, deciding to disperse. The evening was ruined anyway, so we decided to go about our business. Hinata finally came to her senses and spoke. Thanks, Naruto. It was said very quietly, almost imperceptibly, but I was very close and heard it. For what? I asked, because I could not understand what I had done or how I had helped so much that she thanked me. You called me a very sweet and pleasant girl. Thank you. Nobody called me that. Please. If you want, I can call you that at least every day, if you like. That's it, I shouldn't go further, the entrance to your quarter is around the corner. I liked it very much. See you tomorrow, Naruto. See you tomorrow, Hinata. I followed Hinata with my eyes all the way to the turn, and then smiled to myself. It looks like I really liked her. I can't help but say, but her emotions are very captivating against the background of everyone else. Nobody has loved me yet. And these feelings are new for me, unusual, so tasty and sweet. And now several months have passed, but there is no effect of addiction, and no. After thinking about this thought, I went to my house. In addition to physical training, there were also chakra control training and seal mastering. I did both before going to bed, and in general almost always control. Mist of the poison chakra is the result of the first successes in this direction. Previously, I could not consciously do this. Now I began to get the same fog to condense and, when released from my STSCH, to give the form of a clot, which allows this clot of dense poisonous chakra to be launched into the enemy. Physically, even a simple person will feel this only as a strong punch, for a shinobi it will generally be harmless, but as control grows, the clot will be denser, the speed will be greater, the penetrating power will also increase, and the poisonous properties will grow as my strength and its quality, density. That is, over time as control increases, this can become a very dangerous technique, because if the poison chakra projectile hits a shinobi, it will immediately penetrate into his circulation system and begin to poison and destroy both the system and the body itself at high speed. Togura said that he would need time, about 10 minutes, to remove such a poison. And this is now. Later, as the poison becomes more concentrated and poisonous, it will become more and more difficult to do so. The training came to an end when I simply could no longer think and fold the same seal, concentrating on its meaning and functionality. After taking a shower, I immediately went to bed. Tomorrow it's time to enter the usual mode and continue active physical development. We have to get stronger. Commentary on Part 8. In honor of the 1st of April and in honor of another sponsor who gave me a sum of money. Thank you so much. Answered. Readability has been improved. Cat. Part 9. On the 1st of November there was a new enrollment in classes, and for me and my class it meant the beginning of the third academic semester and finally learning the first techniques. Not immediately, of course, but soon. The past tense, for the most part, was monotonous. I woke up in the morning, did exercises in the form of 10 circles of exercises, which now, a little more than a year later, has become really only exercises for me, but when I started training, my maximum was 4 circles. Wow, how fast time flies, and how strange that I even think about it. After charging, I wash my face, have breakfast, do small exercises to control the chakra, gradually speed up the circulation. My regeneration extends, as it turned out experimentally, not only to the body, but also to the chakra circulation system. Yes, the recovery rate is much lower, but even a 26 times advantage is colossal. And this allows me to use the SCC much more actively and more strongly. Also experimentally, but already under the supervision of Togura Senpai, it turned out that with increased loads on the channels of the chakra by my poisonous chakra, a dual effect of it appears. What does it mean? If I explain it the way Togura Senpai explained it to me so that I understand everything exactly, then usually my poison chakra only speeds up my regeneration, both physical and energy. But with a high activity of the chakra, it begins to poison my energy and body. That's just the speed of regeneration also increases. So it turns out that my body receives damage that immediately disappears, the same with STS. The chakra channels get microdamaged, immediately healing. Naturally, this is very painful, therefore, in order not to experience severe pain, I cannot increase the circulation rate above a certain threshold, which depends on how developed the SCS is and how strong my body is. It just turned out that such a dual property also has its advantages. Namely, each shinobi has its own potential, which is embedded in it by many factors, but one of the main factors is genetic inheritance. A lot depends on genes, since most of the chakra is yang, bodily energy produced by the body, and the better the body, the better the production of yang, and the more chakra in the end. Genes also affect predispositions, talents, and more, increasing the personal potential of a shinobi. But the opposite is also true. The stronger the shinobi, the larger and stronger his chakra, and the greater the effect it has on his body. Namely, the chakra allows you to create the effect of directed mutation. This is characteristic only of the strongest shinobi, since it is their chakra that permeates the body so much that it begins to drive its properties into their genes. Subsequently, these shinobi have children with genes in which a certain energy template is already encrypted. Shinobi carried out constant selection, which allows them to transfer the necessary genes from the category of recessive to dominant, thus fixing them. The weaker the shinobi, the more generations are needed to consolidate, respectively, and in principle it is more difficult to do this. However, logically continuing this idea, if several generations in a row achieve great strength by developing the same ability, then the effect of fixation will be very strong and high quality and will eliminate the need to carry out strict selection in the future. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. Which allows you to transfer the desired genes from the category of recessive to dominant, thus fixing them. The weaker the shinobi, the more generations are needed to consolidate, respectively, and in principle it is more difficult to do this. However, logically continuing this idea, if several generations in a row achieve great strength by developing the same ability, then the effect of fixation will be very strong and high quality and will eliminate the need to carry out strict selection in the future. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. Which allows you to transfer the desired genes from the category of recessive to dominant, thus fixing them. The weaker the shinobi, the more generations are needed to consolidate, respectively, and in principle it is more difficult to do this. However, logically continuing this idea, if several generations in a row achieve great strength by developing the same ability, then the effect of fixation will be very strong and high quality and will eliminate the need to carry out strict selection in the future. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. More generations are needed to consolidate and it is, in principle, more difficult to do this. However, logically continuing this idea, if several generations in a row achieve great strength by developing the same ability, then the effect of fixation will be very strong and high quality and will eliminate the need to carry out strict selection in the future. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. More generations are needed to consolidate and it is, in principle, more difficult to do this. However, logically continuing this idea, if several generations in a row achieve great strength by developing the same ability, then the effect of fixation will be very strong and high quality and will eliminate the need to carry out strict selection in the future. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. And the more often strong shinobi appear in the family and develop their generic ability, the more dominant this trait will be at the genetic level. The stronger each next generation will become. So what's the problem? And the problem is that you can't just take and get a huge amount of chakra. And chakra monsters like me are an exception, just an anomalous exception to this rule. For this you need to develop mentally and physically. It's just that initially having a small potential of a shinobi, having reached the maximum level of a weak Chunin, he will almost stop his growth. Why? Yes, because with the cessation of growth, development and maturation of the body, when it is most flexible and supple, the same thing happens with the SCS. The organism ceases to mature, loses its relatively high adaptability. You could say he is skeletal. No, due to training and chakra, the shinobi retains flexibility, but at the cellular level, the adaptability of the body weakens. Therefore, reaching a certain bar of strength, which you manage to achieve by the age of cessation of the body's maturation, you fix part of this power in the genes with your chakra, and the potential of your child is higher than yours from birth. He, if he tries just as hard, will increase the potential of strength even more and will continue to do so until a child is born, whose potential from birth is simply so huge that it exceeds the parent at times. The so-called geniuses. Personally, I also include the founders of Konoha, Madara and Hashirama. This is precisely the result of such a systematic selection and increase in the potential of strength, stretched over generations. And they were already able to discover some abilities beyond what everyone else had. They have surpassed the bar of their original gene and reached a new level. Madara was able to awaken some new form of Sharingan that had never existed before, by himself further enhancing and improving his genome. Wouldn't be surprised if he knew that his children and grandchildren, with due perseverance, would have succeeded in awakening this form of dojutsu much easier. Hashirama created or discovered a new ability, Mokutan, the element of wood. A very strong ability. I am sure that the energy template of this element was fixed at the genetic level, thanks to the monstrous volumes of chakra. It is possible that his volumes were even larger than mine. I thought about all this and corrected it as I spoke to Tegit-sensei. He made comments and supplemented me himself, so I finally formalized this idea in my own, one might say, theory. Tegita-senpai thought about something for about 20 minutes, after which he told me that he could not object to this theory, and this is quite possible, because it does not contradict anything he knows about chakra, genes and all other medicine. Thus, I took this theory as a working one, for lack of a more logical and correct one. So, what am I for? Oh yes, everyone has the potential. Once developed, the growth rate drops significantly to almost zero, unless there is some kind of push. Even I have this potential, even if it is very huge. But there is an end. Was. Previously. But our observations with Tegita-senpai gave an unexpected result. This very duality is nothing but a way to overcome the limit. My chakra, at extremely high loads, begins to damage the circulation system, but these damages are evenly distributed throughout the SCS and heal quickly. But even though now it is almost not noticeable, in the process of walking in a circle of injury recovery, the channels become more flexible, softer. This is not a permanent effect, it continues throughout the day, and after that, in 6 to 8 hours, the STS comes to the old state. But during these days you can train, and the chakra circulation system will develop at the same speed as in childhood, and the next day, carry out a similar procedure. That is, in fact, my chakra allows me to reject all limits and grow without boundaries and restrictions even in old age. My strength will continue to grow. My potential is limitless. It remains a mere trifle, to realize this potential to the fullest. And also I made a new decision. I want to give birth to my family, and in the future, perhaps even a clan. And for this, in my opinion, something is needed that will make the genus/clan special. You need your own Kekkei Genkai. And according to my theory, all I need to do in order to get this naturally, while leaving it to the descendants, is to get the monstrous power of the chakra, and also develop some ability at such a high level that it is fixed even at the level of genes. The question remains, what kind of ability to take? It could be anything. But I wouldn't want to limit my descendants too much to the genome, because something quite universal or something unique is needed that will allow you to have an advantage in any situation and even passively can give some advantages. What ideas? None yet, but I still have plenty of time. After that comes the turn of classes at the academy. 3 lessons, each for an hour and a half, after which we are free, and I go to the forest to train. Recently, I began to go into the forest not alone. One fan of dogs beaten by me began to follow me. I noticed it pretty quickly, but did nothing. Want to see where and how I train? Let him look at his pleasure. There is nothing special in my training program at the moment, except for the number of repetitions of the circles of exercises, as well as the highest quality of their execution at maximum speed without rest, because otherwise I spend too much time and I don't have time to do anything else, and therefore it's also training to speed. Kiba watched me train and I ignored him. It still won't be able to repeat. My training is designed for my capabilities and regeneration with chakra volumes, and therefore she will only hurt Kiba. Let him try to repeat as many circles as I do. And I after all only for 260th left. Kiba quickly fell behind me, and after training, I returned and trained in chakra control, in speed seal execution and their combination. After that, I went to bed and in the morning everything was repeated again. Commentary on Part 9. All for today. I'm going to sleep. And so in the attire of the dining room. All. I'm going to sleep. Get up in 6 hours. Clear course. Answered. Fixed 2 tiny bugs. Cat. Part 10. Commentary on Part 10. Today I handed over the outfit and I was terribly stuck, so don't expect a lot of prod. But I wrote this product through force and the strongest unwillingness to do anything, only thanks to a certain Nikita Kirilovich. Thank you, my sponsor. This chapter is dedicated to you and it is only thanks to you that I wrote it today. Answered. Done. Cat. The first technique we started to master was independent of seals and had an E rank. Namely, the invisibility cloak. The technique turned out to be so simple that even with my control, I could master it, since it did not depend on control. The ability to concentrate, attentiveness and imagination are much more important here. It is these factors that allow the appearance of the cloak to merge with the surrounding area as long as you do not move. The technique is easy to use and for its use it requires any piece of cloth, so long as you can hide behind it. Everyone took a different amount of time to master the technology. Someone lacked imagination, someone lacked concentration, and someone could not supply chakra in an even flow into the tissue. I had to devote more time in the evenings to this technique, and I was able to master it at a tolerable level. Alas, lack of sleep did not affect me in the best way, and therefore for the last week I felt a sense of anxiety from Hinata, but I explained everything to her, and she began to gradually calm down. Then there was only the development of technology. It was easy to do: follow the street, stand on the edge and use the technique. The workout was good. Meanwhile, the number of laps approached 400, although it had not yet reached this value. The next technique we were taught was the technique of reincarnation, or simply henge. By itself, this technique is also very simple, the only difficulty is to accurately keep the desired image in mind at the time of creating the look. But further, after the technique has worked, how well your control is developed depends on how strongly you will be felt in the perception of the chakra. That is, for example, I have more than 3/4 of the cost of this technique wasted in vain, and ideally, there should not be any chakra background created at all. The technique is not very expensive, even Sakura, with her low chakra reserves, can hold this technique for hours, while the Chunin restores chakra faster than this technique consumes it. In perfect technical execution. And not only, but in other cases it simply does not make sense to use this technique, because any shinobi nearby will feel your loss of chakra. We were even told a story about how one shinobi lived under this technique for a year and a half among the enemies of the village, spying for Konoha, until the Third Shinobi World War ended. The use of the technique itself did not cause problems for me at all, the problem was to reduce the loss of chakra. And it turned out to be a great training for the development of control. Well, in my opinion, the slowest of us mastered this technique for a month and a half, after which we have to work on the technique until the end of the half year until we can use only one in concentration. I managed to achieve this in 2 months, while reducing losses from 3/4 to half, but the more I cut losses, the more difficult it became. Taijutsu training has moved from simple techniques, their combinations and physical exercises to sparring, albeit rare so far and with a very thorough analysis of all the actions of the sparring. We didn't study genjutsu, as such, but we taught a way to get rid of illusory techniques. And then I discovered something new about myself. First, I still can't get kai, because even with the help of a seal I can't stop the movement of the chakra in my head or anywhere at all. Second, someone else's chakra cannot survive in mine. That is, it, as usual with genjutsu, enters my system, but only immediately begins to collapse and destructure, decomposing. My poison chakra helped me here too. The rest of the lessons went on the same way. Somewhere there were geniuses, the same Shikamaru Nara was a genius in mathematics and no one has yet bypassed him. But in throwing shurikens and kunai, Sasuke showed himself to be the best in the class. I didn't get along with the kunai. No, it turned out to throw them even quite tolerably, but shurikens were given to me much easier. I threw them like a god. Although I admit, Sasuke will be better than me at this. But if he took the speed and the number of shurikens thrown, then I learned to throw them along a curved trajectory. So far, I've only been able to hit the target 3 times out of 7, but Sasuke can't even do that. It remains only to hone the skill. Education was not only at the academy. Besides that, I studied with Taguta Senpai, but I didn't study with him personally, but almost entirely on my own. I took the materials, studied and memorized, came and asked what I didn't understand, and after that I passed the test he had compiled. In general, no matter how you go to him, it always turns out that he prepared for everything in advance and he has plenty of time. Right now, I studied liver and kidney function with Takuda-senpai. Although I have to memorize a lot, so my head swells, and it's not every day that I manage to allocate for this, but still, I'm gaining knowledge. With Sasuke, we continue to meet and arrange joint training with sparring. Once, at one such training, Sasuke showed me the great fireball he had learned during the absence of training between us. The technique looks really impressive, and I especially liked the fact that, with all its pluses and minuses, the technique has no restrictions on the invested chakra. That is, you can stuff it there as much as you like, and the more you put in there, the more and more dangerous the equipment will be. In short, a pretty cool technique. Upon my request, Sasuke showed me the required seals and their sequence, and also explained what to do in the process. I tried, 27 times. On the 28th, I managed to exhale a flame that swirled, but did not form a ball. But the flame came out not small. My birthday this year was not as usual. That is, they didn't kick me, didn't push me, didn't insult me, and they would have tried to do it. After all, I will not stand and endure, but I will answer in such a way that I will break my bones. My strength is now more than enough, even without chakra, to defeat one adult untrained person, but with chakra I can master a dozen. And if I don't hold back and I have the knowledge that nothing will happen to me after their death, then I will use my poisonous chakra and watch them writhe in death throes, slowly rotting. And I won't bother with it at all. No, this time my birthday went much better. Sasuke, Shino, and Hinata showed up at my small apartment, although the latter admitted that she was able to enter for a short time, because she had run away and soon they would be looking for her in the clan. They did not want to let her go to visit some rootless demon. It's a shame to some extent, but the main thing is that Hinata came, but I still remember about the rootless one, although I understand that this is so, that it's true, but I don't like to endure insults, and here is a clear insult. I am not vindictive, but I have a good memory and I love revenge. My first corpse is direct proof of that. When everyone arrived, they immediately began to give gifts, only Sasuke said that my gift was not ready yet, so he would give it later and I could pick it up. Shino gave me shuriken with a non-standard shape. As he said, these shurikens are basically incapable of flying in a straight line. I really liked the gift. Hinata gave me a scarf. The same as the one that 3 years ago I was torn by the guys who offended Hinata. I put it on right away, and when I found out that Hinata had been sewing it herself for the past month and a half, and this was her 6th attempt, which finally ended in success, I just hugged her, at the same time enjoying my own gratitude to her for such a gift, because it's so much the same work and attention must be invested in order to do this, and it with the surrounding spectrum of emotions of my guests. We sat until the evening, after which we all walked Hinata to her quarter together, and then dispersed halfway to me. This time was so rich and at the same time ordinary, and then a great misfortune happened, reminding me that, under the influence of my friends, I managed to forget. Happiness is that part of the universe that can only be torn out and taken from the world by force, otherwise any happiness will be accompanied by 100 times stronger grief. Part 11. How are you doing? I asked Sasuke, who was sitting next to me now. Amazing. Even though Nissan stopped training with me completely, but my dad took it upon himself to teach me. I can already create the fireball and great fireball technique from the first time. I hope that soon I will be able to overtake Itachi, even if it seems impossible. Sasuke, you know, I don't quite understand you. Why are you so eager to overtake your brother? What will happen after you overtake him and become stronger, faster, smarter than your brother, more experienced? What happens after you reach this point? What is your next goal? Well, no matter how hard I tried and trained, no matter what results I showed, compared to Itachi, I always ended up second. You don't understand this, because, sorry. Sasuke quickly tried to correct himself. I don't have parents, do I? Yes, Sasuke, thanks for reminding me of that. But you know, I don't regret it. I wouldn't be who I am now if I had them. Also, you've seen how everyone in the village treats me, right? At least the vast majority. Fear, apprehension, hatred, anger, tell me, what can such a small child do to be so disliked? I don't remember anything like that, but for as long as I can remember, everything has been exactly like that. So my parents are to blame. They did something so bad that it was all transferred to me with their death or simply disappearance. What did they do? I don't know and no one tells me. But despite this, I envy you, Sasuke. I envy you a lot. You would see yourself from the outside. When you meet your mother, brother, father, you become so joyful that it is simply impossible to recognize you. You are at the academy and you and your family are completely different people. And I envy you, because I did not experience such joy from being close to my relatives. Sorry, never mind. I have long since come to terms with these thoughts. I don't know how to turn back time, I don't know how to resurrect the dead either, and if I could, how would I know who needs to be resurrected? And it's not a fact that knowing, I would have decided on it. I don't want to know my parents. They left me nothing good in my life, except for life itself, for which the only thanks to them, and this tattoo on my stomach. I have too many questions and complaints about them. Naruto, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have raised this topic. I can't understand you, just like you can't understand me, because of the difference in life. And may it always be so. It's better for you to never understand me than to understand and live with it. You are right. By the way, your gift is ready. They brought him last night, and I just now remembered. Come to me, I will immediately give it to you there. There you can try it on. Sasuke said much more joyfully and energetically, and after 5 minutes I was already walking towards his quarter with him. We walked along the street almost in silence and only occasionally exchanged some phrases. Specifically, I tried to understand, to guess what it was that he had been preparing for so long, what had to be done for so long and taken to Konoha from somewhere. Sasuke only smiled enigmatically and did not let himself be broken without giving clues. Only now, on the way to the Uchiha quarter, I got a little worried. It was quiet. No, it was too quiet, and not only the absence of sounds alerted me, and not so much as the absence of emotional echoes. No emotions around, except for me, Sasuke, and 2 or 4 other sources somewhere in the Uchiha quarter. And the emotions there were not at all joyful. Sasuke, something happened. I can only feel 4 people in your neighborhood, 3 of them are your brother Itachi, father and mother, and the 4th stranger is somewhere in the distance. No one else. Absolutely. I immediately told Sasuke. He's the boss here, not me, maybe something important is going on here that I don't know about, but Sasuke wasn't warned because of forgetfulness. But, judging by his reaction, this is not at all the case. Sasuke took off and ran to the entrance and, entering the quarter, stood up as if rooted to the spot. I ran in after and froze just the same. I saw everywhere the corpses of the killed, literally stabbed members of the Uchiha clan. I knew many of them. We were not friends, but they did not feel any hatred towards me and there was no negativity towards me. And then I see them all killed. And I think I know who. Sasuke ran again, but now he was running towards his house. To the killer. At maximum speed, I ran after Sasuke, who had time to break away, and ran up to him at the moment when he was just entering the house. I stood behind him and saw Itachi remove the katana from the body of his own mother, Sasuke's mother, and from the one that treated me, if not with love, as it was with Hinata, but with kindness. I felt her good intentions and feelings directed at me every time we met, not once did she feel negative towards me. And here, both Sasuke and I seemed to look at Itachi at the same time and see his eyes. It wasn't the Sharingan that Togura-senpai described, a red eye with a black pupil in the center and 3 tome around it that rotate at the same speed. This is how the Uchiha's fully developed Sharingan was described. It's quite different. A fat black circle, the size of the entire iris, and 3 large ends of the tomo, emerging from the circle in 3 different directions. So that's what kind of animal you are, Mangekyo Sharingan, eyes that have gone beyond the Uchiha genome. And in the next moment the world changed and became gray, and the moon turned red. Something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. Some tingling in the head. We were also at the same place with Sasuke and now we saw Itachi killing his parents, having killed every Uchiha he met before. No one survived. And his parents did not even resist. The burning sensation in my head intensified and became painful. Eyes began to pinch and moisture began to accumulate there. And then the katana pierced the heart of his mother, Mikoto Uchiha, and then his father, Fugaku Uchiha. The pain in my head intensified even more, and salty tears finally poured from my eyes, which I had not had for a long time. These were not the most dear people to me. But they still treated me well. And now they were killed, their own son, the one whom they raised, gave everything, money, knowledge, strength, home, love, family, and he flushed it all down the toilet. Myself. The pain in my head became unbearable, and I closed my eyes, squeezed them shut. The tears didn't stop, didn't help. Doesn't matter. A growl was born in his chest. A simple breath turned into a growl, and the world around him began to swim. The burning sensation from the head spread throughout the body. It literally burned from the inside, burning me. And at the same time bringing relief. I already know this feeling. Duality. Harm and good. My tissues are now simply decomposing, being destroyed, dissolving, but these tissues are recovering from themselves and from the chakra much faster. I felt my fingers itch, and with a fleeting glance I saw how bestial claws grew on them. The surrounding world was covered with a veil, and the next moment I found myself in the familiar world. But the pain didn't go anywhere, and Itachi didn't move for a moment. Only a second after I appeared, he turned his conscious look at me and his eyes widened. But I didn't care. Driving the claws on my fingers into the floor of the house, I push forward with them and with my feet. In just a moment I find myself near and punch Itachi. Despite the fact that he is already a full-fledged ninja and jonin in general, he was thrown into the wall, breaking it. I ran after him, leaving claw marks on the floor behind me. Appearing next to him, I realized that punching was completely ineffective. Instead, I stabbed with my claws and immediately cut through the soft tissue on Itachi's arm, leaving Itachi with 4 wounds on it. Again and again, I rushed forward, attacking Itachi's claws faster and faster and hoping to rip out and devour the heart of this bastard who had everything. Everything that one could only wish for, and what was not, could be obtained later, and he himself destroyed it all. Not only lost, but destroyed with his own hands. I hate. At some point, I began to shoot with my hands the clots of poisonous chakra trained by me, only now it was not a dark purple dense fog, but almost a solid dark fire that was almost purple in color. Itachi dodged, but I released more and more, releasing dozens of clots per second, and finally he did not dodge one of them, only partially. The clot tangentially touched his left arm. Very little of my venom has penetrated his SCC, but even that will kill him over time, without good Irionin, even if it takes a long time. But Itachi's pain began to feel right now. And the next moment, a kunai comes flying from somewhere, knocking off Itachi's forehead protector. Sasuke. I barely noticed him, but I saw that his eyes had also changed. He had red eyes with a black pupil and one tomo rotating around the pupil. Returning my gaze to Itachi again, I was about to rush towards him, but I began to feel a strange feeling. My SCC has become slower and slower to recover, and damage is dealt at the same rate. My regeneration was no longer able to handle the damage. There is something like exhaustion of resources. Itachi also noticed something and quickly picked up Sasuke's down protector, jumped onto the pole, looked at Sasuke and, turning around, disappeared using some kind of technique. Only in the last moments of consciousness did I manage to discern in his eyes and emotions repentance and regret, incredible bitterness and apathy. And in his eyes I saw a gleam of light. He cried. Commentary on Part 11. All. I'm going to sleep. Thank you, of course, your generosity is very nice, but I also need to sleep. Especially tomorrow, exercises with the foreman. Thanks to another anonymous sponsor. Without you, this chapter would have been released only on April 4th, and it's not a fact that not later. So you are great. Thank you, answered, and again. Cat, Part 12. I do not remember how I lost consciousness, but I came to myself already in the hospital. Everything hurt, especially the SCCH hurt. Over many years of training, I have learned to distinguish between the pain of the circulatory system and my physical body, and now I can say for sure that even though my body has completely healed, the active stage of recovery is underway in the circulatory system, and there are many damages in it. I lay in my hospital bed, waiting for the recovery to be over, thinking about what had happened. Something happened to me. At first, that change in the world, rather, my perception changed, and this speaks of a genjutsu-induced, while the illusion was very strong, as it kept in me for quite a long time, in the midst of my toxic chakra. And in this illusion, Itachi showed me and probably Sasuke how he killed his parents. At least the vision of the illusion was consistent with what I saw before falling into it. Why did he do it? To demoralize us? But then why did it all happen so that when I entered the illusion, Fugaku-san's body just started to fall, and when I came out of it, it had not yet fallen? It was inefficient, because if there wasn't such a time difference, he would have been able to kill us and escape. But he didn't want to kill us. At all. He only dodged and blocked blows, not trying to attack at all. Even when I hurt him having cut the tissues of the arm rather deeply, he did not try to beat me. And when Sasuke nearly hit his head with a kunai, but what was the point of all this? What actually happened then? Why did he kill all those people and his relatives? I remember his emotions. He regretted it, it hurt him to do it, he almost went crazy from what was happening, but he continued and continued. So why? He did not want to do this, but he did not stop, continued, maybe he was forced. Forced to cut out the entire clan? No, then Sasuke wouldn't have lived. And how would you force him? Uchihas are very emotional, I know this very well, often and for a long time being among them, if they love someone, then with all their hearts and forever. Even Fugaku-san, no matter how he looked from the outside, continued to passionately love Mikoto, Sasuke's mother, although from the outside you can't say that this is so, only I clearly felt their emotions. They are many times stronger than the feelings of ordinary people and other shinobi. And I felt, in those rare encounters, that Itachi loved his family the most, especially Sasuke. What if he was blackmailed? Sasuke was threatened with death, and in order to prevent this, he fulfilled them or his condition. Cut out the clan. Everyone, even his parents, except for Sasuke, whom he loved the most. But he did not touch me because I am a friend of Sasuke, or because I am not involved in his clan and there is no need to kill me. But why, then, did he show us in illusion how he killed his parents? More precisely, he showed it to Sasuke first of all. Most likely, just got under the hand. It is clear that in this way he will only achieve hatred from Sasuke towards him and most likely he will simply wish to kill his brother, and given the emotionality and longevity of the Uchiha's emotions, Sasuke, over time, may well move on this thought. But why was he trying so hard to make Sasuke hate him? Because it diverts attention from something more important. As we were told in the academy, sometimes, in order to hide something very important, you can and should reveal something less important and in every possible way draw the most attention to this small something. Itachi attracted all our attention to himself and Sasuke, most likely, will not even think about it, he will simply go to a new goal, the destruction of his brother. And it won't allow him to think about it and realize that his brother may have been blackmailed or somehow forced to do all this and the only thing Itachi could bargain for or just find some loophole is to let Sasuke live, give him a chance. But if he finds out about the true culprit, he will undoubtedly try to destroy him, eventually dying himself. I doubt that Sasuke would be able to kill the one who could force Itachi to do such a thing now. What happened to me? I remember how the duality of my chakra increased by orders of magnitude, its density increased, the circulation rate simply skyrocketed, and strange metamorphoses occurred in my body at a tremendous speed. The claws on my hands grew and the musculoskeletal system somehow changed, which allowed me to comfortably move on 4 limbs, the reaction speed, strength and speed increased, regeneration moved to a completely new level, both energy and physical, only with time destructive the chakra properties began to take precedence over the restorative properties, which led to my current damage. But for the short time that this happened, I caught up in speed and strength with the Jonin, the genius of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha, even managed to injure him and poison him with chakra. And given the increased destructive properties of it, I don't think I did much damage. Especially Itachi's energy. And why, one wonders, did the color of my chakra change? It was already a non-standard, dark purple, although Toguro-sama said that it usually has shades of blue in high concentration. But then a fiery red mixed in, a cold sweat broke through me, and goosebumps ran all over my body began to cramp a little, which paralyzed my body from the fear of what I just realized. That monster, a huge monster that was locked in a cage, which was attacked by Axel with dark balls, a monster that scared me no weaker than Axel himself, he is in me and then, at that moment, his fiery red power, which is, in fact, chakra, mixed with my dark purple and did everything that happened to me. Through the pain, I lifted my head and looked down at my stomach. I was wearing a tank top, so I lifted it up and looked at the tattoo, the only thing I had left of my parents. At the academy, we were told about such a thing as an explosive seal. A drawing on paper that is made using chakra, which, when activated, produces an explosion. Not weak, we were shown this seal. Then I didn't even think about the fact that that seal, albeit remotely, is similar to a tattoo on my stomach. Quite different, but they have something similar. What if it's not just a tattoo? What if this seal is connected to that monster? What did Axel say then? What was my dream? Axel ended up there because of my call, but how did that nine-tailed fox monster end up there? Why in a cage that hasn't disappeared despite everything going on there? Could it be that that cage is my tattoo? Could that monster actually be in me? I felt that the process of restoring the SCF was over, and in the next moment, an alien chakra began to flow through the SSC. No, it flowed before, but because of the restoration, I did not feel it. This chakra was many times stronger and more toxic than mine. Many times. On orders. Definitely, even if it was a small fraction, almost imperceptible to me, the chakra of the nine-tailed monster flowed in me. Commentary on Part 12. The early morning and the lecture in the morning contribute to the desire to overcome boredom and write food, because I don't have time to lecture, and there is nothing to read. Maybe take on the worm. Answered. Again the cat is almost useless. Part 13. After 2 hours, I got over the shock and, having overcome the irrational fear, I was able to get up and move away from the bed. I needed a distraction, so I decided to find Sasuke. He's probably in the hospital too. Leaving the room, I quickly found Togura-sensei and asked him about myself, what happened to me and how much I recovered. It turned out that quite a bit. It's only the second day. And I had numerous injuries of the central nervous system, ruptures of muscles and ligaments, severe exhaustion of the nervous system, and also tendons were torn. But now I am completely healthy. As Togura-sensei said, my chakra regeneration increased even more, about 2.5 times, but at the same time toxicity increased significantly. To be honest, I didn't care at the time. Increased toxicity. So my developed simple techniques will become even more dangerous and stronger, regeneration increased. Just great. Now it's even harder to kill me. And the fact that now it's even more difficult for me to become an Iranian, nothing, I'll get out somehow, and not only the Iranian path exists. And there, someday, I can become one. Finding Sasuke with Togura-senpai was easy. He was physically healthy, the only problem was severe nervous exhaustion. Now all he needs to do is relax and take it easy. Entering his room, I saw Sasuke, already awake, but not reacting to anything, looking out the window and thinking about something. And his eyes were red. No, Sharingan has nothing to do with it. It's just that his eyes were red with tears. I went up to him and climbed onto the bed, sat on the edge and looked in the same direction he was looking. You know, Sasuke flinched from my voice and began to blink frequently, as if throwing off an obsession, after which he looked at me, sitting next to him, only now and noticing that he was actually not alone. I also looked out the window and thought about many things when I woke up after my last birthday. I thought a lot and decided for myself, found a lot, explained a lot for myself. Then I almost died. Then I changed. He who has known the greatness of monsters, demons, the greatness of the near death, will no longer be able to remain himself. He will change and look at many things from a new perspective. So it was with me. Now, I'm afraid it's already happened to you too. And even if it can make you stronger, I would not wish such strength on anyone except myself and those like me. But definitely not for you. Why? Sasuke asked me in a low voice. You had and lost. Unable to get back what you lost, you will take revenge. With all your might until you get your revenge. You need the power to get revenge. But what will happen after? Strength, for the sake of revenge, is taken from everywhere, from all possible sources. If you do not control yourself, and you will sacrifice a lot for the sake of strength, and when you take revenge, you will understand that there is no one around, and there is nothing that could become your goal. You will exhaust yourself. And you won't need power. She will become your curse, which will remind you of all your mistakes, which were true only before revenge, but after they showed all the fallacy of this statement. The words just came out of me. I didn't even think about the words, I said what I thought about in the depths of my soul. What he understood and realized. And I felt really sorry for Sasuke. And you? He asked me shortly, but it was enough for me to understand him. I didn't lose. I never had it. To lose something, you need to have something, otherwise you will simply have nothing to take away. I had no parents or anyone else for whom I would like to avenge. Now you have arrived. You, Shino, Hinata. I am ready to take revenge for you. But I already have a goal. And she may well contain the desire for revenge. I want strength. I was on the verge of death, I learned that there is simply unimaginable power, unattainable. And then I wanted to achieve this power, and surpass it. To become so strong that nothing could threaten me. I don't need power for anything specific. Strength for new strength. This is my path, my motto, my incentive to go and develop further. I do not regret that I was on the verge of death and went through it, went through the contemplation of demons and monsters, went close to the Shinigami. But I don't want that for you. I didn't and won't want to. You do not need it. There are other ways for you to become stronger. Why? Why is he? The question was never asked to the end, and Sasuke's eyes again flowed tears. During our acquaintance, this is the first time he cried in front of me. I do not know for sure. The question was also obvious, so I began to answer. But Sasuke, do you remember that I feel emotions? So, I can say for sure that Itachi did all this against his will. He did not want this, and right there he was already suffering from what he was doing. I cannot know what happened. Maybe he was threatened, or maybe they somehow subjugated him, or even imposed some kind of genjutsu that forced him to do all this. However, I doubt the latter assumption. Most likely it was blackmail. How? What could they use to make him do this? He began to wind up, that he already sat down on the bunk. It's good that he did not deny this idea. You. I said, and Sasuke, who took a breath in his chest to continue, froze, and then exhaled and lay back down. What do you mean? I felt how much he loves you. He loved his parents very much, but his love for them faded in comparison with her love for you. For your brother, his little brother was more precious than his own life, and therefore he went to great lengths to save your life, give you a chance to survive and become stronger. For what? Perhaps so that if this someone who threatened your life comes to you, you can stand up for yourself. That is why he showed you how he killed your parents. I'm sorry that I'm pulling on memories so that you completely direct your revenge on him and not try to look for the true culprit, because if Itachi could not do anything with him, then you are even more such a force. It is possible that as atonement for his sins, he will even take some kind of exam. Then, when he left, he was ready to die right there, and the only thing that prevented him from doing this is that in this case you will definitely be left without an incentive. And so, you would have an incentive to develop, to surpass and kill your brother. He told me, he said then, under the illusion that I was too weak and if I wanted to kill him, I had to become stronger. Much stronger. Well, that's what I thought. It turns out that if I'm right, there might be someone in Konoha who wanted to destroy the Uchiha, and he did it through your brother's hands. And he is still here. This is someone powerful and strong enough to do everything himself, albeit incurring, perhaps, some losses. Of the options known to me, there is only the Hokage in his ANBU, which everyone knows about, but about which nothing is known. Perhaps only he would have the strength to do so. Hokage? I don't know for sure, but at the moment he is the most likely option. Thank you, Naruto. For what? I asked. Then at home, you attacked Itachi and fought him, even though he's a jonin, for a reason, right? You were fond of my parents, weren't you? And you came here, to me, and yet in the morning you had multiple injuries to the MSC and your body, and you only recently woke up. You do not leave me, although now I have no clan, no one who will help and stand up for me. I am alone now. Maybe so, but there are still those who treat you well. Your friends. You suffered a loss, but I have lived like this all my life, so I can say that good friends may not replace your family, but they will become your new home. How they became me. And besides, with Itachi the situation is not yet clear to the end. Nevertheless, thank you. You were there, you saw everything, but you didn't quit, but you helped and now you are helping too. It is important. Okay. I have to go. I'm already completely healthy, so I'm going back to the old schedule. Get well soon. And don't forget, Sasuke, you're not alone. There are those you can rely on. And you have at least one friend who understands you. Get in touch and don't be shy. And I have to go. See you soon, Sasuke. See you, Naruto. Commentary on Part 13. I mean, I'm sitting at a seminar, and I think that I'll be actively working. I'm getting ready, I mean. And then bam, the phone announced the message that had arrived. And there they write, they say, from such and such a bank they made a transfer to your card in the amount of 250 rubles and the message, I would like to sell faster. And I think such that the seminar fucking flew to distant lands and I wrote this product. Read and thank a certain Igor Ironin. Answered. Readability has been improved. Cat. Part 14. 5 days later, Sasuke returned to the academy. He was much gloomier and didn't speak at all. It wasn't until after the academy that me, Shino, and Hinata spoke to him normally, preferring not to touch him during class and recess. On the second day after returning, Sasuke stopped in the middle of the road to his quarter, where the others and I were going to train together. More precisely, 3 people went there, while Shino got rid of it somewhere along the way and went to his quarter. Hinata couldn't walk with us all the time either, because the clan. One word, but so much meaning. This time we were still walking with the whole company, when Sasuke stopped and reached into his bag. He pulled out a box, which he immediately handed to me. I still could not give you your gift, so I decided before I forgot to give it now. Hold on. I nodded and took the box. Opening it, under the curious glances of Hinata and Shino, I saw 4 black metal bracelets, 5 centimeters wide and 1.5 centimeters thick. I looked up at Sasuke, not understanding what it was. Their weights. Their father, at my request, bought iron in the country. There is a Fuinjutsu master who custom-made these chakra-conducting metal weights. Very high-quality work that is difficult to destroy and very durable. When put on, it begins to pick up the load on the body, so you need to wear weights lying down. After optimal selection, it begins to resist any movement of the wearer. Resistance depends on the strength of the wearer. The stronger you are, the stronger the resistance. To turn them off, you need to sharply apply chakra to them. After redressing, there is a selection of the load again, but much easier, so it is not necessary to go to bed. They feed themselves from the wearer. The work is very difficult and I don't understand everything about how they work, but I said what I understood from my father's explanations. This is my gift to you. They will help you become much stronger. You need to wear 1 bracelet per arm and leg. Enjoy. I looked at Sasuke with wide eyes and imagined the prospects of such artifacts. This is what a gift. Just unbelievable. Thank you. You just cannot imagine how grateful I am to you. Thank you very much. The training session went on as usual. Sasuke trained in everything and paid little attention to ninjutsu. I trained according to the compiled program and performed new circles. After I recover, I begin to train the henge technique. I want to keep the chakra background to a minimum. I also tried to repeat the fireball, but we quickly found out that although fire works for me, it is not the main element. The only reason I get such good fire is because of the amount of chakra I'm wasting on those big jets of flame. For me, this is normal, but for Sasuke, this is 2.5 of his reserves. Just unreal loss of chakra. Digging through the stash, Sasuke, trying to somehow help me, found chakra-sensitive paper. As he said, this was once used by his brother to determine his main element. To check, you only need to apply a little chakra. When I applied the chakras, the paper got wet. As Sasuke said, this means that my primary element is water. Then Sasuke brought me some scrolls with Suetun techniques. Among them were the water core, wave arm, water cannon, and water shuriken techniques. The water shuriken was postponed by me until better times, since it requires high direct control and does not have seals. The hands of the wave also do not have seals, but they require incomparably less control, and the strength of the technique and its scale depend on it. The water core only required 1 tiger seal, as well as some concentration. The water cannon is generally group and should be strengthened by the second performer, simply imbuing the technique with chakra. Consists of 5 seals. Thus, I decided to study the water core. The technique, in fact, is a kind of analog of a fireball and has similar advantages. Unlike the fireball, luck caught up with me already on the 7th attempt. Although not perfect, the technique turned out, as evidenced by at least that giant puddle 5 meters from me. And when I returned home, I washed, did all the evening things, lay down on the bed and put on Sasuke's gift. Commentary on Part 14. Hey, here's my gift to you. Just a gift. Not for anything, not for sponsorship. Just a gift. Answered. Readability has been improved. Cat, Part 15. The weights were a real ordeal. They prevented most of the movements, even breathing was more difficult, as they resisted the movement of the chest a little. Training with them. I felt like I was back in the same state I was in when I started training. Tired completely after the 5th round and could not move. The weights didn't block or suppress chakra, no, they provided roughly equal resistance to any movement. Different parts of the body during movement experienced different resistance from 0.05 to 0.99. How it worked, how they navigated and recognized what and how to slow down, I can't even imagine. This is something beyond imagination. These weights allowed me to fully use the chakra, strengthen myself and work out, thus, control. Because, that only by increasing my control over the chakra, I was able to increase my power by increasing the number of circles passed. Even with all my chakra volumes, my control allowed me to go through 5 or 6 circles, after which I barely moved until I fully recovered. But I must say that it brought results. The purely physical strength of my body grew, control also grew and quite quickly. I am still far from the level of at least the same Sasuke, but not too much. I wore weights all the time. What is their charm is in the considerable functionality that allows them not to be removed at all. They remove moisture to the sides, so that the skin under them does not suffer and allows you to breathe due to the supplied air. The skin does not rub, does not hang out, and in general, if you do not look at them, you will forget over time that they are generally worn on you. After all, even they themselves weigh almost nothing, they only resist every movement. I even bathed in them, constantly using chakra enhancement, because if this is not done, then there is not enough strength even for a full wash. With the use of chakra, strength becomes greater. More precisely, that free share of forces that remains becomes sufficient for certain actions. In fact, these bracelets make anyone almost 10 times weaker. And accordingly, when I become as strong in bracelets, as without them at the moment, then removing them, I will be about a dozen times stronger. But I should not do this without special training for the reaction. After all, my strength, speed and power will grow, as well as the strength of the body, but the reaction speed to control myself may not be enough. He took the advice. In the meantime, the academy began to pass a new technique, the replacement technique, Kawarimi. The technique is very useful and used by all shinobi of all ages without exception. This technique allows you to instantly swap places with a nearby object. Be it a log, a stone, an animal, another person, a doll, even a rolled carpet. Any object can be swapped. The main thing is that this object does not resist the presence of chakra. For example, changing to another shinobi would be quite costly, for the others, but not for me. I also really like this technique, and I learned to apply it without seals. Or with their minimum set. To do this, he organized a circle of heavy boulders with one empty place. The stones were 20 meters apart from each other and formed a circle of 21 boulders on the landfill. I stood in an empty place. Concentrating, in bracelets, he began to carefully fold the seals. Only 5, Rambor Bulldog Snake. After successfully folding with a constant supply of chakra to my hands, I ended up in the place of the stone on which I focused. I looked around, the stone just fell to the ground in the place where I was. Again, repetition of the technique and again substitution. And again. And again. It was a fairly simple technique, and therefore I did not experience any difficulties. As for the chakra, it recovered faster than I spent on this technique. The seals were folding faster and faster, despite the fact that it was difficult and heavy due to the bracelets that I was wearing. I kept going over and over again, going in circles time after time. And then, when the seals were folded automatically, I, due to the fatigue of my fingers and hands in general, folded one seal incorrectly. More precisely, in fact, he didn't fold at all, but while he realized this, he managed to fold the last seal and again replaced himself. I stopped and lowered my hands, began to think. And then it hit me. It turned out. Reduced technique by 1 print. Since that time, I spent half an hour in such a workout, spinning 50 circles, or even 100. This gave a gradual result, and after a month I folded only 1 seal for replacement. With Sasuke, everything was more or less settled. He himself thought over my words more than once, as he confessed to me, and admitted that I was right. Gradually, he was inclined to think that Itachi was also a victim, although he had to be asked. Everything was fine with Hinata. We continued like this, all day, walking, when I gave myself a rest. With Shino, we also walked, albeit less frequently. Now they began to actively teach him some clan techniques, and he became more busy, but that's okay, I'm generally busy almost without interruptions. Hinata told me funny stories, and I told her interesting things or facts that I could learn about. But most of the time we were silent. They were just silent. But me and she loved it. Once I met them when they were walking with my sister and an escort from a security guard, but when I said hello, this security guard quickly led the kids away from me, and I put aside the face of this Huey in my memory. Nothing, I'm not vindictive, but I'll remember it. And then I'll remember. Gradually, time passed, I became stronger as I could, trained every day and trained the only jutsu I got, the water core. Gradually, according to the descriptions from the scroll, it was possible to recreate the sleeves of the wave. So far, not very good, but I could send a jet of 20 meters forward. And what pleased me was that I had no problem creating water. The question here is not so much in control, but in the concentration of the water chakra in one place. At a certain rate, it materializes in the form of water. Even so, it is much easier to use the available water. Commentary on Part 15. Thanks to a certain anonymous person who sent the funds at 14:22 Moscow time. This chapter is dedicated to you, even though I don't know who you are. And now let's all call Beta together. 1, 2, 3. I have come, mortals. Reap the benefits. 4, 5, 6. Who dares to call my name? N. Answered. The Cat 2, Part 16. Sasuke began to have problems at the academy in the form of female fans chasing him all the time. Two of them especially stood out, Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka. I didn't care, I just laughed at my friend, but he sat with a gloomy face at his desk and looked into nowhere, but his emotions rushed about in his head in a variety of ways, starting with embarrassment when he heard some of the statements of his fans, ending with rage, when they pissed him off. I just laughed at him, because not a single emotion flashed on his face. But when he was on the verge of collapse, I saved him by simply breaking into the ranks of the fans, splitting them. And there is nothing surprising in this, considering what kind of resistance I was used to experiencing by that time, then a few girls were not a problem for me at all. In general, these bracelets make me happy all the time. They constantly adjust to my strength and leave me a maximum of 1/10 of the possibilities, extinguishing the rest in the process of movement. But even so, I was now doing 136 circles, drenched in sweat, feeling the beauty of multiple ruptures of muscles, ligaments and tendons and their subsequent fusion. Just an indescribable feeling. But I had to endure. If not because of strength as the main goal, then at least because of control. Yes, control, that's my pride. Especially water control. More like liquids. But more on that later. My control has reached great heights. Henge. Although not ideal, but only 1/8 of the losses is a significant success, in which I overtook even Sasuke by 1/8. With the same invested volumes of chakra, my fireball began to turn out many times more, 7 meters, and the explosion is powerful. That's just all the same, the losses are great, but constant practice reduces them to nothing, gradually facilitating control over the fire. In general, control over the elements is a very strange phenomenon. Someone can use their element from birth and be incredibly talented in this, but not be able to use the rest of the word at all. Someone generally has difficulty mastering the elements, someone is easily given all the elements, but they need to be developed from scratch, and someone has terrible control over all the elements, but can equally use each of them. My case is one of those. My element is water, it is given to me very simply, but fire is not my element, but control over it also grows with practice and training. I am already at the level of affinity and fire control that Sasuke was at when he first mastered the fireball technique. Cause? Don't know. Perhaps I'm really just talented and 2 neighboring elements are available to me, water and, losing to her, fire. I tried to master the techniques of other elements, but although they were given to me in the same way as once a fireball, there is no such progress in them. Water was initially given to me simply and now it is already incredibly easy, while control over fire was simply terrible, but every time it grows more and more. In Suten's direction, I studied the water core technique, wave hand, water merging, tapuga, which simply creates a jet of water, in fact, not a martial technique, but the water god sword technique turned out to be the most difficult to master. I had to spend half a year on its development, and then another 3 months on the qualitative development of this technique. The whole problem with most of these techniques turned out to be that they do not require hand seals. But, after this technique, it was relatively easy to bring the previously studied to the level of creation without seals. It was even easier for me due to the greatly grown, by that time, control, water shurikens, to which I nevertheless returned. Having mastered this technique of water at a minimum level, I began to sharpen myself to create non-flying shuriken directly, similar to those that Shino gave me. These techniques themselves are also very strange phenomena. Has anyone wondered why some techniques, which are quite dangerous and complex, do not require a single seal, while others, which seem much easier, require several dozen seals, like the same water dragon, which requires folding 21 hand seals? But, in fact, it's just a powerful projectile jet of water in the shape of a dragon. So why is another similar technique, Impact Maelstrom, only requires 4 seals, although the rank of techniques and their danger are close to each other, only the dragon, albeit more powerful, but a one-time attack, while Impact Maelstrom hit and continues push as long as you hold the technique. The initial power is less, but the resulting damage is many times greater. But at the same time, the difference is 17 hand seals. What's the matter? This question interested me, but neither in the Uchiha library, nor in the academic library, I found anything. The teachers did not answer, and I myself could not come up with an answer, at least one that would satisfy me in terms of logic. Since water was easy for me, I trained with it for a long time, devoting twice as much time as with fire. And just 4 months ago I was able to move a small puddle of water for the first time with just direct control. That is, no stamps. Since then, I've tried to use water without seals as often as possible, just doing what I wanted with it. It didn't work out very well. Right now my maximum is a 1.5 meter long puddle of water that I can control with full concentration on it. But when using the seal of concentration, the length rises sharply to 7 meters, and the number to 2. It seems like a trifle, just one seal, and the most common one that all techniques reduce to in the end, but I wanted to achieve more without using seals. After all, is there a possibility? Eat. So what's the problem? That it's difficult. It takes a lot of time, but if you master the technique on bare control at least at the minimum level, then with seals it comes out almost perfectly. Elemental control grows the fastest this way. Another would be to find a way to get around the problem of time, and in general there would be a class. Meanwhile, the 4th year of study at the Shinobi Academy was coming to an end. And Sasuke had a really hard time. Commentary on Part 16. That's all for today. Enough of you. You read, I received Dinyushka, I embodied inspiration in letters and words. Now let's call beta. 1, 2, 3. Call fulfilled, rejoice. That's it, the beta is sleeping. 4, 5, 6. Fixed spatial gap. Analysis in progress. Protocol exterminatus activated. N. 7, 8, 9. Survivors found. Cleansing by small combat groups carried out. S2. Answered. Part 17. By the end of my 4th year, I began to understand the essential difference between me and most of the others. I am strong, very strong for someone who just graduated from the 4th year at the academy. I am also fast, my reaction is good, my regeneration is just wonderful, but with these data. I fight, sucks. Previously, I didn't really notice this, because, even in sparring with Sasuke in weights, I quickly began to surpass him again, although before that I grabbed his first time. Then I surpassed him in speed and strength again. There is nothing to say about endurance. But more and more in our sparring sessions, I find myself becoming predictable. Sasuke, and even with his Sharingan, simply anticipates my movements and avoids attacks in advance and counterattacks himself. So far, unsuccessfully, I am moving away from his blows at the maximum speed for me in bracelets, but this is already an indicator. When I don't have any technique, no tactics and combat system, just simple strikes and dodges. Yes, with a big difference in strength and speed, this is enough, but even just a strong and experienced Chunin is no longer far behind in speed from me in bracelets. I checked, I know, but there was a problem with fixing this problem. I couldn't find a teacher. Where can I find it? Togura-sensei said he couldn't help, he hadn't trained in taijutsu for a long time, he was just keeping fit. Sasuke also said that their clan fighting style is aimed at using the Sharingan. Hinata has a similar problem. To master the Juken, you need a Byakugan. She knows everything is tied to bugs. Find sensei somewhere on the side. I doubt this is a good idea. Considering how most of the people in the village feel about me. In the end, I came to a simple conclusion. I need more sparring with a stronger, faster and so on opponent that I could not defeat with strength and speed alone. I don't want, but in this case I will need to get out. In fights with Sasuke, I tried to use new moves and punches, tricks and even grapples. Anything that could be effective. Not always, but I kept in mind some tricks and tried to use them in sparring. The Uchiha more and more often managed to catch me in counterattack, and sometimes he began to succeed in inflicting glancing blows on me, from which I was no longer able to completely escape. And what is most offensive, I continued to surpass Sasuke in speed many times over. In the last month, he stopped taking my blows on a hard block at all, which happened after a fracture of the radius bones. Only soft and deflecting blows. But he managed to get me. In the 5th year, we made more emphasis on taijutsu, exposing in a circle much more often. There I dealt with everyone with one blow. I just didn't need more. For what? In taijutsu, they are many times worse than the same Sasuke. In physical parameters they lag behind in the same way. The only exception I made was for Hinata, where I just gave up. Shino gave himself up. With Sasuke, our fights were a little longer and more interesting. A few months later, we were given a new technique to master, the illusory clone. And this is where I got stuck. Well, now I can't create normal illusions under my control. Maybe in a year or two I would increase the control enough to use this technique, but now I can't get the word out at all. That is, clones then appear, but such that it would be better not to appear. While dealing with this issue, consulting and asking Toguda-senpai, we came to the conclusion that the amount of bodily energy in my chakra is extremely large, while in, and in particular, mental energy, on the contrary, is relatively small. Namely, this energy, mixed with the energy of the soul, is the main component of illusions. The bodily serves here as an element of the embodiment of this illusion. Yes, my control is very high compared to my early levels, but this is not so much because the amount of yin has increased, but because I have learned to manipulate small yin to manipulate large yang. This happens to all shinobi over time, since yang is always greater than yin with good talent and active training, and the difference in proportions only grows. Perhaps the exception here may be representatives of the Nara clan, Uchiha, Hyuga, Yamanaka and Kurama. Their difference in proportions is not so huge, but the same Senju, according to Toguda, had a huge amount of yang, but it was much softer than the standard, which made medical techniques much easier for them. He also said that previously there was a very strong and large clan, each member of which was the owner of truly gigantic volumes of chakra, and in particular, they had a huge amount of bodily energy. I have the same problem. Yes, because of the high control, my yin is better. More precisely, on the contrary, a higher quality yin allows, with the same amount, to better manipulate the chakra, a large volume of it. This is what manifests itself in strong shinobi over time. The amount of yin grows slowly, and control needs to be increased. So the quality is growing, not the quantity. But this is a long process and my example is an indicator of this. Moreover, if the rest make the process of quality improvement gradual, stretched out over time, at the beginning taking quantity, then I have the opposite situation. Now my yin is very high quality, thanks to which I have chakra control at the level of the first year of the academy. Sasuke's level from 4 years ago. And now the problem arose regarding the rapid increase in yin. How to do it? Meditations, mind training, mind loading in new experiences. The first one is good, would not refuse to rest in meditation with the body, but this means a time limit for training the body. And I shouldn't slow down. Mind training is an exercise aimed at improving memory, thinking, developing logical, strategic and tactical thinking. Games are good, like shogi is suitable for this. And the best in this Nara. Mind load is mind load. Just study and your mind will get a load. Any incoming information to the mind loads it, but up to a certain point does not give the desired load. There are also trainings for attention, observation and so on. This allows you to receive more information at once. Well, experience is what we get all the time, during life, training, communication, in short, our whole life. And the more you live, the more experience you have. And experience is what we get constantly, during life, training, communication, in short, our whole life. And the more you live, the more experience you have. And experience is what we get constantly, during life, training, communication, in short, our whole life. And the more you live, the more experience you have. In general, from all that has been proposed, I can begin to train the mind for attention and memory at the same time as physical training. I'm sure it will be difficult at first, and my regeneration won't help much here either. But you have to, Naruto, you have to, and so it went. The first time I didn't succeed. I just forgot about these trainings in the process of repeating the exercises. It was difficult to keep the concentration of thoughts on these exercises, but after a month I managed to complete this exercise for the entire training, but in the end I lay down and recovered much longer, as I received severe exhaustion of the entire peripheral and central nervous systems. Further, the load on the mind began to come easier, although it was not particularly noticeable. Another 2 months passed, and I realized that although there was an effect, my illusory clones began to turn out to be more normal, but they could not even stand on their feet. And the time was running out. What can I say? Even Toguro-senpai increased his mental load by loading his head so that it began to ring. There were 6 months left before the release. For the rest of the academy, illusory clones began to turn out at least well, some even had several clones, like the same Sasuke. I had little success. Yes, control grew, but slowly. Too slow. And I just can't think of new ways. I just didn't have time for anything else. The realization of my problem and the understanding that I cannot correct this shortcoming of mine put pressure on me. In fact, it shows me that I will not be able to overcome the obstacle. An obstacle that stands in the way of the force. That is, I realize and understand that there is something that does not allow me to achieve my dream, and at the same time I have no way to overcome this obstacle. It must have been noticeable from the outside, since at the academy I began to feel anxiety directed at me from Sasuke, Shino, and Hinata. Especially from the latter, and this calms me to some extent. Thank them for this. In the end, after 2 weeks of this state, I noticed that Toguro-senpai was looking at me somehow thoughtfully, and with each lesson he came to some kind of decision, which was felt by his emotions. Naruto-kun, take a break. We need to talk. Sensei said one of those days. Yes, sensei. I looked up from a scroll that contained a very detailed account of the lymphatic system. Recently, you have become much more irritable, you have bags under your eyes, which is surprising, with your regeneration, stamina, and chakra volumes. It's because of your problem, right? He asked. That's right, it's me. I began to rummage through my memory, choosing the right word. Depressing? He suggested. Yes, exactly, it depresses me. Failure to overcome this problem. Yes, graduation is coming soon. And there you might be unlucky and drop a clone technique, right? He asked. Don't care about this release. What hurts me more is that I cannot overcome the problem, no matter how hard I try, spending all my strength. And still this is not enough. I just don't have time. I began to raise my voice, venting my accumulated irritation. And if you give this extra time, will you continue to train? What? I froze. Give me extra time. How? The only time that I can still replace is rare weekends and sleep. I won't give up the weekend. Toguro-senpai knows this, only sleep remains. Does he really have a way to overcome the need for sleep without harm to the body and mind? Are you capable of harmlessly depriving me of sleep? On your part this is the only correct logical conclusion, but no. You see, when I was already working in the hospital, one day, helping an important shinobi, I met the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. He was in a great mood and, seeing me in a much worse state than you are now, he asked me similar questions. And then he gave me extra time, which allowed me to do a lot more things in one period of time. This is his personal technique, which he also created. Shadow Clone Technique. This is a special technique, thanks to which a shinobi can create an absolutely exact copy of himself. Everything will be the same. Knowledge, personality, with slight adjustments for the clone's fidelity, but this does not interfere at all. Strength, skills, abilities, all this is completely copied. The shadow clone is able to use and do everything the original. It can't be, there is such a technique. Why isn't it used everywhere? Expenses. Each time a clone is created, the original divides its entire chakra pool by a multiple of the number of clones it creates. Thus, 5 clones reduces your reserve by 5 times. At the same time, the production of chakra is also divided into all 5 clones, and as long as the consumption of chakra by this technique does not exceed production, clones can be maintained without time limits. In addition, shadow clones, when transferring knowledge, transfer absolutely all experience, including fatigue of clones, both physical and mental. Also, even though the shadow clones are equal in strength and speed to the original, their strength is not so high. Yes, it is many times larger than elemental clones, with the exception of stone and wood, which only the first Hokage could use, but much lower than the original, therefore it is quite fragile. However, the stronger the original, the better the clone. But even so, what a potential! What opportunities! This, Bijou take it, is my chance to overcome my problem. Get stronger. I have a lot of chakra. I'm not worried about that. I fear for your mind. No matter how you kill yourself with a sharp load of information on your brain, but there is regeneration. It will increase the endurance of the brain at times. That's why I decided to start this conversation, Naruto-kun. Otherwise, I wouldn't even think about it. Come on, I'll show you the technique. Run, Togura-senpai. I shouted at the top of my lungs, radiating joy, because here it is, the step that will make me stronger. Commentary on Part 17. Nikita Kirilovich again saved everyone. He bribed that woman who decided to goof off and who is called Muse, and she brazenly tore me away from the new work of Zero Morgan Zero. For the sake of such a sponsor, I wrote a bit more Produ. Thank you for the fish. And now let's call the beta together. 1, 2, 3, understood, called. 4, 5, 6. An inquisitor was sent to the place of the spatial gap. N. 7, 8, 9. The cleanup team removed the traces Estu. Answered. Part 18. Shadow clone. Many opportunities with great danger. With successful use and good experience, it allows you to literally be in several places at the same time. With the missing parameters of concentration, chakra reserve, brain readiness, most likely you will face death or, if you're lucky, an extremely painful pastime. But the main disadvantages of shadow clones did not concern me. Do you need a multiple of the number of clones to divide your reserve? I have so much chakra that even having created 100 clones is enough for a full-fledged battle, and after all, when the clones are destroyed, all their chakra replenishes my reserves again. Concentration is trained by any shinobi, even such a half-educated person like me. Without this, even the minimum level of chakra control is impossible to achieve. The preparedness of the brain is compensated by my regeneration. According to the evidence in the documentation, the average human brain receives microtrauma of the brain with 3 clones that have actively existed for more than 3 hours. Before that, everything is fine. Then everything depends on the degree, first of all, of mind training, which I have been doing lately, the amount of yin and chakra in general. I have a lot of the last one. The first is not enough, but only in comparison with the chakra. Compared to the same Shikamaru and Nara, who are all considered geniuses of the mind, I have 6 times more yin due to training to control huge volumes of chakra. Its quality is also much higher. And, what's already there, I definitely don't consider myself stupid, compare at least with Nara, at least with Yamanaka, and so on. So, compared to the others, yin I am not deprived at all. The technique was learned in an hour, after which I was able to create the first shadow clone. We stood opposite each other and began to look at each other. From the side, as I now see, my partial gray hair really looks strange, but personally I can't say whether it's ugly or even beautiful from some angle. Now let's go, I began. A small test. Finished the clone. I held out my hand, palm open. To meet me simultaneously with me, the same palm rushed. Cotton. Another one. More. For the next 2 minutes, one could hear continuous clapping of hands in complete silence. Communication test completed. No failures were noticed in the work. We continue on. For the next 2 hours, I played around with the clones and tried to test all of their features. In the end, I had to admit, and I did admit that this technique is a brilliant invention. It opens up gigantic possibilities that I will undoubtedly realize. In 2 hours, I found out that I could create 232 clones at a time for a maximum of chakra, and after that I could feel chakra depletion. An unexpected feeling, I must say, because I had never experienced it before. Physical exhaustion, nervous, yes, it was, but I never had chakra exhaustion. And it was terribly annoying. Soon the chakra began to recover, but first of all, it was not my own that began to flow into the Kirikuki, but the same fiery red chakra, which is closer in color to the color of blood, and only after that my own began to flow. But even so, the proportion of this incomprehensible chakra inside me was much higher than usual for 3 hours, which was noticeable by the pain from the chakra channels and increased aggressiveness. Almost everything annoyed me. Any sound and rustle caused a desire to destroy everything around. But I lay and waited until the balance shifted to my side, but even so, the concentration of the monster's chakra in me grew, and I clearly felt it. All these created clones, not having sufficient nourishment from me, began to exhaust their resource. The result, the clones lasted 5 hours. But that's a huge amount of time for me. During this time, all of them, following my order, began to train the mind. A simple training for concentration, attention, and memory. It seems not so difficult, if you do it yourself, alone, for a couple of hours, albeit with a load on the body. Another thing is when you meditate like this, completely focused on a given goal, 6 hours multiplied by 232. 1,392 hours of uninterrupted mental loads, compressed into 6 hours parallelized into hundreds of threads. As the clones began to dissipate, I passed out. I woke up in the hospital. I will recognize this ceiling and smell even after death. I hope she's not here. Everything blurred in my eyes, my head was spinning, I was a little nauseous. Toguro-senpai soon arrived. I don't even know whether to please and praise you, or to scold and beat you. What should I do with you? He asked calmly, standing by my bunk. Toguro-senpai, but everything ended well, why be angry? At that moment, I thought about how such situations could happen to people dear to me. Okay, you have a reason to be angry, but look at this with the other side. Now I know my limit, both chakras and mental. Although the latter I probably notably exceeded. What state am I in, Toguro-senpai? Not sure. On the one hand, when I discovered you, dragged you here and did a full examination, I found you had an incredibly severe depletion of the central nervous system. Your neurons were half a step away from starting abrupt degradation and self-destruction, even your regeneration only kept you from instant death, but before I could do anything, something, in your chakra changed. Regeneration increased by orders of magnitude, the chakra began to thicken and form trace elements in large quantities and almost instantly restore the central nervous system. After the central nervous system was restored, the chakra began to decrease, somewhere, to the area under your hearth, at the same time drawing in your own chakra. They completely mixed up, and when one disappeared, the second also disappeared. The chakra, despite the formation, disappeared for another 3 hours, until it starts to return to normal. Later, I understand you woke up. Now, surprisingly, you don't have any problems. You have fully recovered. At the same time completely, independently. Congratulations, Naruto-kun, you have become much more tenacious at times. At least if it wasn't an isolated incident. It's clear. This makes me happy. But I still have a headache, dizziness, mild nausea. So I can't say that I'm completely healthy. Physically, you are completely healthy, Naruto-kun, but I cannot answer for your soul. I don't understand these matters and I can't say how such a flow of information influenced her. It is possible that such a sharp flow of information could hurt her a little. In this case, lie down here for another 3 days, and if all these problems remain, we will think further. Clear. What do you mean by praiseworthy? Oh, yes, congratulations, you partially achieved your goal. Ine has increased. Not by much, barely more than 1%, but there is growth. I just don't recommend doing it again. Thank you, this is very encouraging. My pleasure. Now lie down and sleep. Perhaps sleep will speed up the recovery process. Then have a good day and night, senpai. I didn't argue, just turned around and lay down to sleep. The dizziness and pain were very exhausting, and even listening to sensei was difficult, let alone speaking. So I passed out almost immediately. It was worth relaxing and laying down comfortably. Commentary on Part 18. Thanks to an anonymous sponsor. Made me very happy. We call beta. 1, 2, 3. Came, why count it? 4, 5, 6. Really? I'm already tired of adding numbers and thinking about what to write here. 7, 8, 9. But it trains the imagination. Answered. Part 19. As soon as I returned from the hospital, life began to sparkle with new colors. Shadow clones do not allow you to accelerate the development of the physical, but they allow you to gain combat experience. They can't do much, but they can do more. Now, during the day, I did not work on the load on the brain. On the contrary, I tried to perform special exercises to relax the mind, relax it and keep it in an active tone. I need this because during the day I exercise physically and relax my mind, preparing it for the evening. In the evening, I accelerate the chakra to the limit of the emergence of duality, give the command to disintegrate the clones, and they disperse one by one, which eases the load on the brain. In total, I can maintain 18 clones on a permanent basis, thanks to the restoration of the chakra. If you do more, then they slowly but surely consume the invested chakra resource. But on the other hand, these clones are not limited by anything, except that the chakra regeneration rate for all of us is 19 times less, as well as the volume, but this is more than enough. Of these 18 clones, 8 are constantly practicing water and fire techniques. 4 clones per element. This, in general, gives a very significant result. The rate of development of the elements did not increase 4 times, as one might expect, but much more, because the clones did not spend most of the day on the academy, on physical training, and on other matters. The only thing they did was use my huge chakra reserves to train techniques and elemental affinity. In the morning I got up, created these 8 and sent them to the Uchiha training ground. Sasuke gave me full permission to use his clan grounds. Anyway, he himself uses only one of them, the rest are at my disposal, at least change every day. However, he does not mind when I worked with him. As he said, it's just easier for him to study when he feels someone close to him, than when he was the only one in the whole block. I can understand him, such a feeling is rather unpleasant. I myself did the usual exercises, then I went to the academy and from there I went to full-fledged training. At the same time, the clones created a little later were sent to another training ground, where 6 clones were engaged in mental training for the development of attention, memory training and observation. 2 for 1. One would go to the hospital, where Togura-senpai would receive better training in theoretical medicine in his spare time. Alas, I'm still far from practical, but in the hospital I was able to find new equipment. The water-praying mantis technique creates large water claws like the indicated insect with a very sharp edge that cuts through flesh like butter. I also liked this technique, and I studied it. More precisely, one of the clones that trained the water was studying it. It took me only 2 attempts to master, with my affinity for water, and it took me 2 days to create the same technique on pure control with 1 clone. But later, based on this technique, I thought about creating other techniques of this type. I still do not know the principle of creating techniques based on seals. No one, as agreed, wants to explain or, which is also likely, simply does not know this principle. Unless he realized that, most likely, the 3rd Hokage knew about him, because he became famous as a ninjutsu genius who created many techniques of all elements. But while I'm not a high-flying bird, I can't go and ask the Hokage. This means that we will have to go through a more complicated, but, on the other hand, better way. Direct control over the elements. The last 3 clones dealt with my eternal problem, control and its increase. More specifically, an increase in the quality of Yin. I supported them all day, while training myself in the usual mode, and when I recovered on the 315th or 316th lap, I went to Sasuke. There I sparred with him until sunset. The next 3 hours of free time were spent on dinner, preparing for tomorrow, and so on. And then sleep with a preliminary acceleration of the chakra to the limit of duality. The clones, feeling that I had fallen asleep over our connection, dispersed one by one with a difference of 15 minutes. All preparations lead to the fact that the next morning I feel quite well. The chakra, having accelerated under the influence of my will, by itself slows down rather slowly, so that, when dispelled, a sharp influx of the chakra spent on creating a clone and the return of chakra regeneration to the usual pace supports the acceleration, and it already heals the micro-traumas received from the clones, especially from the 6, which uses mental training in the brain and puts the body in order overnight. Togura-senpai and I considered this training regime to be the most optimal and effective. Over time, with the development of the chakra, I will be able to maintain 19 clones at the same time all the time, and the brain and mind gradually get used to such sharp jumps in information. Moreover, in a dream, the brain works much more actively, and reaches a constant pace of work in such parameters. At this pace, a steady increase in the amount of yin began, and control over water and fire became easier and, to some extent, more natural. In 3 months, the clones worked out all the techniques known to me to the level of a maximum of 1 seal of concentration, but I could do without it. Just then the efficiency would be a little lower, but over time this shortcoming disappears and evens out. It is possible that sooner or later I will be able to use these techniques without thinking at all. However, when will this happen? Also, finally, I learned one of the most famous techniques of the elements of water, the water dragon. All 3 of my clones studied it for 4 days, and one cannot even dream of using the techniques with 1 seal. I was in sadness. Yes, thanks to the increase in both quantity and quality of yin, I improved my control over these months, and even illusory clones began to turn out to be standing on their feet, albeit staggering alcoholics. Let their appearance leave much to be desired. The same control allows me to make myself much stronger, more precisely strengthening my body, strengthening it, which gives me more striking power, compared to the previous me. Even the speed allows me to develop more. That's what good control means. But at the same time, Sasuke is increasingly able to catch me. His Sharingan is, of course, another assistant, but it's one thing to notice or see, and another to have time to react. In pure strength and speed, I again pulled out much ahead of Sasuke, but I don't have a technical fight, and he just bypasses my blows, takes them away and does it more and more accurately each time. Yes, the experience of fighting that I get allows me to come up with new tricks, but, just as our volumes are not comparable, and at the same time in my favor, so my skill is not comparable with his, but already in his favor, while his development speed in this regard is higher mine at times, if not orders of magnitude. Yes, my skills are enough for the academy, but the same Sasuke, because of the constant fights with me, I think, as if he was already pulling for a Chunin, albeit a weak one. Both in terms of speed, and in terms of chakra volumes, and in mastery with strength. In taijutsu, he makes me develop like a turtle, just like I do him in ninjutsu. But the same Sasuke, because of the constant fights with me, I think, as if he was already pulling on a Chunin, albeit a weak one. Both in terms of speed, and in terms of chakra volumes, and in mastery with strength. In taijutsu, he makes me develop like a turtle, just like I do him in ninjutsu. But the same Sasuke, because of the constant fights with me, I think, as if he was already pulling on a Chunin, albeit a weak one. Both in terms of speed, and in terms of chakra volumes, and in mastery with strength. In taijutsu, he makes me develop like a turtle, just like I do him in ninjutsu. But my main problem is still the lack of a teacher, someone who will speed up learning, someone who will give at least basic knowledge, and there I'll somehow break through, because the same academic style does not suit me, like Hinata's and Sasuke. There, even the base is sharpened for their features. But just a month before graduation from the academy, unexpectedly, I found a solution to the problem. More precisely, who else found whom, is the question. Commentary on Part 19. Sponsoring from Stepan Nikolaevich has a positive effect. Thank you for the fish. Here's a sale for you. Thank him. What a disgrace. It was possible for the cat to leave a couple of mistakes. Answered.